Molson Canadiens Sunday Night Classics on Leafs TV. It's a Canadian game. Brought to you by Molson Canadiens.
Hello everyone, I'm Joe Bowen, and welcome to Sunday Night Classics on Leafs TV. After making the Stanley Cup playoffs by a single point a year earlier, the Maple Leafs have really enjoyed a pretty solid season in the 1959-60 campaign. They finished second to the Montreal Canadiens and totaled 79 points. After eliminating Detroit in 6 games, the Leafs are down 1-0 to the powerful Canadiens after losing 4-2 at the Forum in Game 1. The Canadiens have won 4 consecutive Stanley Cups heading into this best-of-7 series. The champions of the Cable Cabanas tonight, 2 future Hall of Famers. For Montreal, it's Jacques Plante. And for the Toronto Maple Leafs, it's the China Wall, Johnny Bower. Because it's April 9th, 1960, the Canadiens and the Maple Leafs at the Forum. And this is Molson Canadiens Sunday Night Classics on Leafs TV.
This portion of Leafs TV is brought to you by Molson Canadiens. I am Canadian.
Frenchmen are the highest scoring team in the NHL. 255 goals this season, 56 more than the Leafs. The Habs have 3 30-goal scorers in Jean Beliveau, Bernie Boom Boom Geoffrion, and Henri Richard. The Leafs are led offensively by Bob Pulford, who had 24, and George Armstrong, who had 23. Bob Haggart was the longtime trainer of the Toronto Maple Leafs between 1955 and 1968. Prior to that, Haggart got his start with the Toronto Marlborough Junior teams from 1950 to 1955, winning the Memorial Cup in 1955. He was part of 4 Stanley Cup celebrations. Haggart later founded the Canadian Athletic Trainers Association and acted as its president. He was the executive director of the 1972 Canada-Russia series and was a member of the organizing committee for 5 Canada Cups. And it is a real pleasure to have Bobby Haggart join us here to give us a little different perspective on maybe what went on back in 1960, April the 9th, with the Leafs playing in Montreal against the Canadiens. We've had alumni members, guys who actually strapped the skates on and went out there, and now we have somebody who's behind the scenes a little bit. Tell us a little bit, Bobby, how you got into the training situation and why it presented such an opportunity for you.
Well, that puts us into a trip down memory lane, Joe. In the late 40s, I had the opportunity to be the clubhouse boy, and in those days they called you a mascot, whatever it is, for the Marlborough Seniors.
You didn't have to wear a bear outfit or anything like that.
No. We're the crazy chickens from San Diego.
That's right.
No, Harold Ballard owned the Marlborough Seniors. They played Friday nights at Maple Leaf Gardens. And my mother, who eventually became the lady who ran the press room at Maple Leaf Gardens for a number of years, allowed me to travel with Marlborough Seniors, and they traveled Saturday nights, played home Friday nights. So Harold looked after me and became my second father. And we were fortunate enough that we had such a good team. Joe Primo was the coach, Flash Hollett was the captain, and big star was John McClellan, who eventually coached the Leafs. And during the playoffs, we brought up George Armstrong and Danny Lewicki from Marlborough Juniors. They had been eliminated in the first round with Windsor Spitfires. And they joined us, and George Armstrong set a record in 22 playoff games. He scored 22 goals and 22 assists. And we went on
against senior players.
Against senior players. In those days, senior hockey was looked upon as better than the NHL. So you went from junior hockey to senior hockey to the National Hockey League. And eventually we won the Allen Cup in Calgary, and that was the start of the run.
So you've had a few parades.
6 in total. 1 Allen Cup, 1 Memorial Cup, and 4 Stanley Cups.
So you were up and down Bay Street fairly regularly with the ticker tape.
Well, the funny part is, in just about all of them, I rode with Harold Ballard.
Bobby, a trainer now, there's equipment managers or assistant equipment managers or athletic therapists, there's a masseuse, there's, I mean, they've got 5 or 6 guys working in any athletic room that, various sports.
Sure.
It wasn't quite that grandiose in your day.
2 teams, the Canadiens and the Leafs, had a full-time trainer and a full-time assistant trainer. On game days, you also had, clubhouse people who helped out, and you had a stick boy, etc. But they weren't permanent employees; they were part-timers. The 4 American teams, the backup goalie was the assistant trainer.
That's right.
So in Detroit, you had Lefty Wilson, who played backup goal, because everybody carried one goaltender except Toronto and Montreal. And it was also the home team's responsibility to provide a spare goaltender. So usually you had, in Toronto, the case of the goalie come up from Marlborough Juniors, or maybe St. Mike's, the two teams we owned, and they'd sit in the stands. But Detroit had Lefty Wilson, who went on to become the trainer, Gunzo Hominick in Chicago. The Rangers didn't bring a spare goalie, and neither did the Boston Bruins.
You mentioned Gunzo. That makes 3 Sudburyans that we're talking about here.
Yes,
You being
yes,
from
yes,
the great
yes,
nickel
yeah,
capital
yes.
yourself. Now, of course, you would sign a long-term deal with the Maple Leafs and things of that nature?
Oh, sure. It was really a good deal. The contract lasted about 24 hours, and it was seasonal, but there was never a piece of paper. In the 14 years I was at the Leafs, I never signed a piece of paper.
And so it'd be from September to the end of the season, and
To the end
then
of the
find
season.
something else to do?
Oh, you had to have an off-season job. Hockey was such when there were 6 teams, 2 rounds of playoffs. It was over usually mid-April, latter part of April. And we usually went training camp around September 15th, and you'd start September 1st when the season was over, even though if it finished on a Wednesday in the middle of the week, you had 2 weeks from that date to get all your work done and all the orders for next year, and the building was closed.
And that was it. This game, Bobby, the Canadiens, this is a tremendous hockey team. They've won 4 consecutive Stanley Cups, and they have no weaknesses.
Well, the Canadians were known as 2 things. One, as the Flying Frenchmen, but one thing a lot of people don't realize, and they should look in the record books, Montreal Canadiens probably won more games in the playoffs in their history, 2-1, 3-2. They could win and play defense, but they were never known for that. They were known as the Flying Frenchmen. They also were probably the best team in hockey that the minute they dropped the puck, they were on you. And if you look, they get a 2-3 goal jump all the time. And you're always coming from behind. And they had a killer power play.
Yes, they did. Change the rules of the league.
Change the rules of the game. Yeah.
Bobby Haggard is our guest, and we're looking forward to visiting with him throughout the course of tonight's game, because we're going back to April 9th, 1960, Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final Series between the Leafs and Canadiens. This is Molson Canadian Sunday Night Classics on Leafs TV.
The Maple Leafs are starting out with Bert Olmsted on left wing, Bobby Pulford at center, and Ron Stewart on right wing, against Geoffrion, Beliveau, and Bonin for Montreal. Game just about ready to get underway, and the Canadiens leading in the series 1-0, and they don't do it fairly on the first time they drop it, and they'll do it all over again. On defense for the Toronto Maple Leafs, we have Stanley and Horton, and for the Canadiens, Harvey and Langlois. Now Beliveau, a bit fractious, he acts up before they drop the puck. Eddie Powers sizing them up. He dropped it. It goes to Bonin. Bonin clearing it, intercepted by Olmsted, who cleared it into the Montreal zone. Mont behind the net, fired it near the corner to Geoffrion, who is sweeping around the net away from Olmsted. Cleared up on the left wing, stopped at the point by Horton. And the Leafs fire it back in. They go to the attack here in the early seconds of the opening period in the second game. Canadians start out and they don't get very far. Stewart bats it back in. Into the corner, it's Doug Harvey. Turning. Harvey takes his time, flips it on the boards on the left side. And the Leafs again bat that puck back in, led by Stewart, and it's Langlois around the net. He fired it in among the spectators, trying to get it out, and the Leafs in the initial stages of the hockey game in the early seconds, going to the attack all out and tying the Canadians up. Eddie Powers looks around, sizes up the situation as Stanley and Horton up on the Montreal line. Here's Bert Olmsted, number 16 from the corner. Around the net. Back to the point to Horton. He scooped it in front, deflected by Pulford, who lost his balance. Now it's knocked down. Off to the side, Doug Harvey, and it's cleared ahead with a gloved hand to Harvey, and as he started out, he was brought back for that infraction and a change of players for both clubs. In the first period, we've played 50 seconds.
And Toe Blake taking advantage of that second whistle of the opening period to get a new line out there. His club hasn't been able to get on track with the Leafs forechecking very, very well. So Toe has sent out the 2 Richards with Moore, the Leafs countering with Kelly, Mahovlich, and Edmondson.
Kelly at center, Edmondson and Mahovlich on the wings. Now Kelly in the corner, centers it, tucked it to the side, around the net to Rocket Richard, to Moore. Out he comes with Henry Richard, who takes the pass. Loses his balance, clears it to Moore, back to the pocket to Moore. There's his shot right on. And Bauer got in front of it. A nice passing play between Moore and Henry Richard, and the Leafs back at center. That's Kelly, number 4, in on the left side, and it's poked away. Rocket Richard to Moore, to Henry Richard, over the line. Here's the pocket, centering it in front, and they score! Pocket Richard, passing it out from the corner. Moore, Dickie Moore getting the goal. And it looked for a fraction of a second as if Bauer had it, and he may have had it, and then lost it with Moore getting the goal. So Canadians leading it 1-0.
Par Dickie Moore, assisté de Henri Richard et Maurice Richard, à 1 minute 26 secondes. Canadien goal scored by Dickie Moore, assist Henri Richard and Maurice Richard. The time 1 minute and 26 seconds.
1 minute and 26 seconds, the time of the goal. And it's Moore from the Richards, Henry and Morris. Now there's Big Mahovlich over the line. He tried to get it in front. He hits Rocket Richard down all alone. The Rocket is trying to get in there. Henry Richard couldn't pick it up. And the Toronto Maple Leafs with Mahovlich and Edmondson. Mahovlich at the line, fakes the shot. He centered it across the goal mouth. Edmondson failed to get it in all the way as he flipped it. Now it's Provo coming down over the line, a drop pass to Henry Richard. And the shot hit Brewer. Kelly, number 4 for the Toronto Maple Leafs. A pass goes to number 25, Edmondson. Dickie Duff is coming up on the play too. Edmondson over the line. And the shot blocked by Talbot around the net. Henry Richard jammed out of the play. And it's Talbot getting set. Laid it on the boards. Down it goes into the Toronto zone. And back for it goes Bobby Bond, pursuing him, turning him around, Henry Richard. Now the puck comes in front. Armstrong over to Regan. Regan on the right side to Dickie Duff. Duff is cutting in there. A backhand drive, and it's picked off by Jacques Plante. And it starts out at a very spirited pace. Jacques Plante, Canadian netminder, was in that crouch now for the face-off to his left. It's 1-0 for Montreal over Toronto in the early stages of the opening period. Langlois ahead to Provo to Phil Goyette. He lost it, bumping with Regan. Now Goyette again to the Toronto line, over to Provo. Provo puts on the brakes. The number 19, Langlois, going in for the shot, and he didn't get a good one away. They center it right in front, and Regan for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Skated on the play by 14, Provo. Andre Pronovo, number 23, over to Phil Goyette. He takes the shot, blocked by Bauer. Around the net, Regan finally gets it up. Stopped at the point by Doug Harvey. Here's Harvey, twisting and turning. He's around the Toronto net. Harvey, still with the puck, puts on the brakes over in front of Goyette, and he fell down as he tried to get a shot away. Here come the Leafs. That's Dickie Duff coming in on the left side. Provo gets it out to Phil Goyette. Goyette is in over the Toronto line. He slides it ahead. Armstrong tipping it on the board. Goyette is knocked down by Horton. Here's Regan. A long pass intercepted. Langlois played it back into his own zone. 1-0 the score, with the Canadians leading the Leafs in the first period. Armstrong bumped Provo. Doug Harvey, number 2, in on the line. Offside called as Goyette got in there ahead of Harvey, who made that move over to the right. Marshall is now on, along with Hickey and Backstrom for Montreal. We have Stewart, Fulford, and Olmsted for Toronto. That's Brewer. Number 18, a right wing pass to 12, Stewart. Out with Fulford and Olmsted. They shoot it into the Canadian zone. The rebound at the side of the net, and Jacques Plante holds it. And the face-off will be to Plante's left. Number 10 is Johnson. 8, that's Hickey. Backstrom, Kirkland Lake native. Number 6 moving in for the face-off. Fulford centered it in a bouncing puck, knocked off, back to the point. Here's Brewer taking a shot. Back it comes to Bobby Bond. It rolls in front of the net. Stewart is trying to get it. It goes to Olmsted, a backhand drive, and it's Talbot getting it in midair and slapping it in among the ringside seat spectators. Frank, that spinorama play by Olmsted reminded me of the goal that he got in the final and 5th game against the Canadiens last year that sparked the Leafs to that great comeback in the late stages of the game.
It's true, Danny, and that play, it looks almost as though the players have a bead on 2 fans who are sitting down on the rail seats there. That's the second puck that has gone in and almost taken one head off early here in the game. We're just about ready to go 1-0.
Face off to the right of Plante. Leafs every man up. It's Beliveau, on with Geoffrion and Bonin. Johnson playing it on the left wing board. Zota comes over the line. Beliveau dropped it back, and Stewart scooped it in. There's Olmsted cutting around the net. Johnson played it back to the point. Bonina's shot blocked and kicked to the corner by Plante. Now the Leafs over on the other side. It's Olmsted, number 16. Back it goes to Brewer on this side to Bobby Bond. He's closing in, and he hit Talbot with that shot. Canadians hard pressed to get it out, and finally Geoffrion cleared it out. And we have played 5 minutes and 29 seconds now. In this, the first period of the second game in the Stanley Cup Final Series for this 1960 season. And it's 1-0 with Montreal getting a goal very early at 1:26, leading the game. Bond takes a shot. It goes off to the corner. Olmsted in on the boards with Johnson. Olmsted falls down. Beliveau jammed in on the boards by Bobby Fulford. And they started to get sticks up high on each other. And so the battle rages once again in the battle for the coveted Stanley Cup, the trophy that had a very humble beginning in 1893, but in the 67 years since its birth, especially in those years since 1926, it has been steeped with drama, thrills, pathos, and for some, heartbreak. Now Canadians starting out on the left side. Talbot to Bonin, 18. Bonin over the line, cutting in on the right side, jammed out of the play to Beliveau. He scores! Big Beliveau from Bonin, and it looked as if Big Beliveau had gone too far in, but he let it go, a backhander, and Canadians lead it 2-0.
And Beliveau, who was held in check quite well by Glenn Skove and the Blackhawks, has come up with 2 goals in the first 2 games against the Maple Leafs in the series.
À 5 minutes 56 secondes. Canadien goal scored by Jean Béliveau, assist Bonin and Talbot. The time, 5 minutes and 56 seconds.
5 minutes and 56 seconds. The time of the goal, Beliveau getting it, and the assist to Bonin and Talbot. And it's 2-0 for Montreal over Toronto in the first period. Kelly, number 4 for the Leafs at center. Edmondson, number 25, a big blonde right winger, is out with Kelly along with Mahovlich. Now Edmondson gets the shot, and a skate save by Plante. And Edmondson had that corner picked out. Now Rocket Richard clearing it to Henry Richard. Down with Moore to the Leaf line. Henry Richard in on the boards. He's racked up by Horton. Here's Moore for Canadians, centering it out. And Kelly ran into referee Eddie Power's skate on the puck flip. And Kelly finally on the left wing. Mahovlich's pass grabbed by Moore. Big Mahovlich again for Toronto, backtracking toward the corner. Henry Richard is watching him as Mahovlich goes around the net. Now he turns, goes the other way. Up on the left wing to Stanley. Stanley working his way out. A pass goes to Kelly, to Mahavlich. It's cleared into the corner. Edmondson going in, and Mahavlich upends Plant as they go crashing in on the boards. Canadian net is wide open, but Montreal in possession. Now they're getting up. Mahavlich is hurt, I think. Play is stopped. I think Mahavlich has been hurt. He hit his head on the boards. Now he's getting up. And Plant going back into the Canadiens' net.
That's a dangerous, dangerous play, Danny, and more than a few hockey players in this league have been hurt trying to nail Plant when he comes out of the net. And Plant has a little trick all of his own. He hunches himself up like a ball. When he knows that somebody's coming after him, they fly over him and into the boards. And on that play, that's what Mahavlich tried to do, with Plant out of his net and therefore not protected by the goaler's crease. Mahavlich has every legal right to hit him, and he tried, but Plant got out of the way. Mahavlich went into the boards head first, and he's liable to have a sore neck for a couple of days, and lucky that it isn't more serious than that.
2-0 to score. Canadians 2 and the Leafs no score in the first period. And we've played 7 minutes and 2 seconds. And Mahavlich is being massaged on the Leaf bench by the Leaf trainer. That big fellow went roaring in there. And that's Bobby Haggart, who is the trainer. Langlois, number 19 in the Canadian home dark uniform. In behind Jacques Plante, dropped it there. And it's Backstrom 6, being watched by James. James knocked him down. Wilson is also on with Edmondson. Played on the boards. James corrals it. He cleared it around the Montreal net. It's Wilson, 19, going in. He centered it, and another 19, Langlois for Montreal. Scooping on the boards. Donnie Marshall lost his balance. There's a shot, and oh, another great save by Plante. Marshall just missed the full impact of the check by James. Here comes Billy Hickey. In on the left side to Marshall. Into Hickey. He's knocked down by Wilson. Into the corner they fight for possession. Number 11 is Jerry James, and Donnie Marshall, and 19 is Wilson for the Leafs. So Edmondson again almost scored. That's the second time tonight in this period. He took that quick shot just off the ice, and Plante was able to get his skate on it and veer it toward the corner just at that last split second.
Nothing in favor of the Montreal Canadiens as Dickie Moore and Jean Beliveau have scored the goals for Montreal. And in the 1960s, the 50s and 60s, Bobby Haggart, you didn't get on a continental jet and fly for 2 hours to get to wherever you had to go, or an hour. You hopped on the train. Many times the train was held to allow the players to get there. What was train travel like?
Well, first of all, it was fun. And I don't think there are too many players who played in that era will say anything differently. What train travel brought together was a team, and you became one huge family. And when you get on the train after the game, it was standard. The game would end in Toronto on a Saturday night, 10:15. The train left at 11:30, not 11:31, 11:30. And they shut the doors, and if you weren't on, you had to find your own way to that city. So, I mean, you jumped in the shower, you went out, your wife or your girlfriend or your pal drove you to the Union Station, you ran down the platform, and in those days, the Leafs and the Canadiens had two sets of equipment. And the reason for that was during the war years, in the 40s, you'd ship your equipment 2 and 3 days ahead because of train travel and the restrictions. That continued right through in the 50s. So we would send one set of equipment, if we were playing Sunday in Chicago, we'd send one set of equipment on the Wednesday train. The Chicago train on Thursday would call and say it's here, and the big trunks the bags were in would all be there. But the players had to have skates. And each player on the Leafs had 2 pair of skates. And most teams, the player only had one. So when the game was over, you wore one set of equipment at home. You picked up literally your 2 pairs of skates and your overnight bag, and away you went. And get on the train, and by God, you better make it.
Teams are segregated, though.
Yeah, they're usually a car. If we were playing back-to-back, say for example Toronto and Chicago. We'd have the last car in the train so we could shut off the door and people couldn't get through. And then there'd be a public car, and then there'd be the Chicago sleeper, then there'd be the dining room, and you'd have to get up in the morning and go through the other team's dining room.
And it would be very nice, quiet gestures. How are you? How's the
Yeah,
wife
just
and
short of
kids?
war. I mean, it wasn't, the threats would be there, and it'd be, you got me tonight, but tonight you're playing in my room, and you know, in my building. And it got so bad in some cases that the dining car would be half empty. If part of the other team was at one end, players would stay at the other end. There'd be a big gap in the middle because nobody wanted to sit close to each other.
Socialize.
So there wasn't any socializing as there is today, where there's 500 golf tournaments every summer and everybody plays.
Now, what happened when somebody got traded? And there had to be some animosity. I mean, when Ted Lindsay got traded from Detroit to Chicago, I mean, I'm sure there were some hard feelings. What happens when somebody was traded from a team and came to Toronto?
Well, we were very lucky that in the late 50s, especially when Imlach took over, the players he traded for were all established players, and that was part of his game plan. We had the great nucleus of the young players, the Mahovlich, the Keons, the Duffs, the Pulfords, the Harris, the Bonds, the Brewers, whatever. And he filled in the gaps. And he traded for Alan Stanley, he traded for Bert Olmsted. When they came with a reputation. Alan Stanley's one of the most terrific guys that ever played the game. Bert Olmsted was one of the toughest, meanest guys that ever played, and he became the in-dressing room leader, bar none. Talk to any of the players who played the 3 or 4 years that Bert played in Toronto, and they will all tell you the same thing. He was the ultimate leader. We got Litzenberger, he had played on a Stanley Cup. We got Al Arbor, who had played on a Stanley Cup. And then when we got Red Kelly, he'd played on 4, I think, with
That's
Detroit.
right.
I think he
Sure.
won the Norris Trophy 6 times or something. And to everybody's surprise, the day he arrived, Imlach made him a centerman. And everybody went berserk. How could anybody do that? You didn't do those things in those days. And he went on to win the Lady Byng Trophy and 4 more cups, etc. But they all were all seasoned pros. And first of all, they're heartbroken because they got traded and have to meet. But within a week or two, everybody were friends. And all of them were good guys.
Found out that real jerk from the other team wasn't a bad guy after all.
Bad guy after all.
Bobby Haggard is our guest. Maple Leafs, however, trail 2-0 to the Montreal Canadiens. Let's go back to one of the great voices of hockey, Danny Gallivan.
And Brewer in possession. Here's a great rushing defenseman coming up. This time he lost it. Leafs coming up, though, still on the left side. Regan jammed in on the boards. Regan still has it. They fight for possession, and Johnson starts out at center. A pass intercepted by Dickie Duff. Here's Duff going in. He winds up for the shot, and it's wide. Bill Goyette cleared it out over the line for Montreal. Number 18, it's Brewer again in position and in possession, and the shot knocked down. Canadians back in. Goyette cleared it ahead. Andre Pronovo taken out of the play. Now he gets it, centers it back. Here's Johnson closing in for the shot, and he was wide with that hard shot. Maple Leafs are back. Dickie Duff, he lost it. Bill Goyette coming down, a right wing pass to Provo. Provo's cutting in, and the shot goes high and wide. Toronto Maple Leafs cleared out over the line. Montreal in possession. Provo to Goyette. Goyette just backhands an easy one to the side of the net. And now the Leafs, a right wing pass to Armstrong, who got away from Goyette. Knocked off his stick by Provo. Armstrong catches up with it. Armstrong takes his shot off Talbot's stick. Johnson clearing it on the right side of Provo. Provo for Montreal loses it to Brewer. In ahead, Regan passed it back. Goyette was bumped by Dickie Duff, a solid check. Now it's Talbot over to Provo. Provo to Goyette. Goyette ran into Duff again. Canadians clearing it in. Behind the net goes Bond for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and the Canadians are changing as the play goes on. It's 2-0 for Montreal. Regan, a pass ahead intended for Duff, goes down to Talbot at the Montreal line. He's coming up with Big Beliveau. A pass to Beliveau. Beliveau is in on that right side. A backhand drive, the rebound. And it's cleared off to Brewer, number 18 in the Cordy. He's bodied by, going to be a penalty to Bonnet. Bonnet is going off for charging, likely. Marcel Bonin and Toe Blake. Oh, is he ever mad. If you can get the camera over there, you can see him behind the penalty bench. He is now moving to the Canadian bench. And he's hollering out at referee Eddie Powers as the Canadian player Bonin has been penalized.
2 minutes pour assaut à 2 minutes 55 secondes. Canadien penalty, Marcel Bonin, 2 minutes for charging. The time, 9 minutes and 55 seconds.
9 minutes and 55 seconds, the time of the charging penalty against Bonin of Montreal. And now the Toronto Maple Leafs, who trail 2-0, have a chance to put on the pressure as Toe Blake puts on the verbal pressure against the referee Eddie Powers from behind that Canadian bench. And the Leafs have the playoff star Red Kelly out there, and he's in possession at the moment. And Kelly leading a four-man attack to Stewart on the right side. Stewart cleared it in and fought out of the net again, fired it on the wing. Marshall gets it out over the line, and it's Stanley, number 26, backtracking to his own line up to Olmsted. Olmsted dumping it in, and Harvey in possession for the Canadiens, clearing it down the ice. 2-0 for Montreal. In the first period, it's Kelly from around the net, winding again. There's a pass, goes to Mahovlich, to Stewart on the right side. He ran into Harvey. Harvey fell down, and Johnson shoots it down the ice, and Kelly once again back for the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's Turner up front along with Marshall. Harvey and Johnson on defense, playing in the center ice area as the Leafs race out, led by Kelly. It's Kelly at center ice, hitting that Montreal line. A left wing pass to Mahovlich. Back to Olmsted. There's a shot. And Harvey skating in front of the net. Got that stick in front of the hard drive by Olmsted. And it deflects well in among the spectators.
And it would seem that they're starting to lay the body in a little bit more so than they did in the early stages of the game. And that might be indicated by the fact that we have the first penalty at 9:55. In the opener on Thursday night, we had about 9 penalties by this time.
And Bonin, whom you just saw, has 55 seconds remaining in his penalty. Here's Mahovlich getting in front, a backhand drive. A loose puck cleared to the corner. Olmsted knocked down by Harvey. Mahovlich goes in. Turner, here's Mahovlich again. He tried to roll it out, and Johnson slid in front of it. Leafs with the pressure on. Stanley back at the point. Knocked down in front, and Harvey cleared it down the ice. And the Leafs applying the pressure as they have the odd man advantage, and Big Mahovlich had the good scoring opportunity at the short side. Now James ahead to Olmsted in on the left side. Olmsted fired a high drive. Edmondson over to Stanley. Stanley into the corner to Olmsted. Olmsted out to Edmondson. Edmondson is circling around, back to Red Kelly. He shoots, and right in front and plunge. Now here's Doug Harvey and James. And let's see, they're both going off, I think. Harvey will go off for interference. Now whether James will go off too, it'll just be Harvey, I think. And I believe the call will be interference. Yeah, there he goes, Doug Harvey, number 2. We wait for the official announcement. There are 2 seconds remaining in the penalty to Bonin. And the crowd is roaring, "We want Story."
2 minutes pour interférence à 11 minutes 53 secondes. Canadien penalty, Doug Harvey, 2 minutes for interference. The time, 11 minutes and 53 seconds.
11 minutes and 53 seconds. You see Donnie Marshall talking to Jacques Plante as the Leafs have the 2-player advantage, but Bonin will be back in 2 seconds. So we have Regan, number 8, Armstrong, 10, Dickie Duff, Bond, and Brewer. On defense playing up, and Punch Imlach wants to have his sharpshooter Bobby Pulford on, and here's Bobby going into the circle to center off. He's going to face off against Donnie Marshall. Bonin very anxiously awaiting the expiration of his 2 seconds, and he'll be back on. 2-0 for Montreal over Toronto. Eddie Powers getting set. Back it comes, Fulford. Regan has it. Bonaz back on. Here's Regan sliding it to Armstrong. Armstrong back to Regan, going in for the shot. And it hit Marshall. Cleared over on the other side of Brewer. Brewer gives it to Armstrong, going right in the goal. And Plante comes up. Well, the Toronto Maple Leafs are doing everything but putting that puck in the net. That was their best, no doubt about it. Armstrong was set up beautifully. He walked in there, and Plante was falling from a short distance out, and Plante got in front of it.
Certainly the best save of the game, and perhaps the key save in this first period. Let's wait and see.
Now the Leafs again. It's Armstrong, number 10. Over it goes to Duff. Back it comes. Turner taking it. Armstrong is after him. Turner falls down in the corner on top of the puck. And the play is stopped. 2-0, Montreal 2. And Toronto nothing. Moore and Beliveau have scored for the Canadiens. A minute and 23 seconds remaining in the penalty to Harvey. Back to Regan. He cleared it in front. And Johnson shoots it down the ice, and back for it is Dickie Duff along with Brewer. Brewer number 18. Brewer leaves it for Regan. He's coming out with Fulford, Duff, and Armstrong. Four of them at center. They flip it in. Now the puck cleared out by Johnson again. Brewer from the right wing. Cleared it to the corner. Plante out of the net, but Turner takes it. To the other side of Provo. Provo to the line. Brewer failed to hold it in. Now it's Fulford on the left wing, shooting it into the Canadian zone. And we're nearing the 13th minute mark. Canadians again get it out over the line. Here's Brewer. It's off the boards. He kicked it in ahead. And Tom Johnson is there to get it, and Johnson scooped it down on the left side. And Bauer let it go off his skate behind the Leaf net. Number 18 in the corner is Brewer. And there are 25 seconds now remaining in the penalty to Harvey. At center ice, now veering over on the left side is Duff. He's across the line. Takes a shot that's rather weak to the side. Turner backhands it down the ice. Kelly is back. And right at this point, the Canadiens putting up a solid defensive display. Now the Leafs trying it again. Here's Olmsted coming in, and he failed to set up Mahovlich. Now it comes back, number 4 off the boards. That's Red Kelly. There's a shot. Harvey is back on. It's Kelly clearing it in toward the corner. Turner for Montreal fired at Harvey, got his gloved hand in front of it. Harvey dumped the pass to Marshall. Over to Provo. Provo to the Toronto line. Jammed that shot against the leg of Stanley. Now it's Olmsted. A long pass failed to hit Mahovlich. Slides down the ice, and the Toronto Maple Leafs will be called for icing. And we've played 14 minutes and 25 seconds in the first period. 2-0 the score. Montreal 2, Toronto nothing. Canadians every man up. Morris, Richard, Henry, Richard, and Moore, the forward line. It's Wilson, Edmondson, and James for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Back to Langlois at the point, and his shot is away wide. Stanley clearing a pass intercepted. Langlois to Moore. Moore coming in with Henry Richard. Here's Moore getting in close. A backhand drive. The rebound cleared by Bauer with Horton going into assist. Centering pass hit Stanley, who cleared it off Edmondson's stick. Rolls into the Canadian zone. Harvey takes it around the net. Fired it on the boards. Henry Richard knocked down a rolling puck. He goes to the Toronto line. Back to Moore. And James took him out of the play neatly. It's Edmondson. As it knocked off his stick. Gets it again. Cleared to James, who knocked it in over the ringside seat boards. The Canadiens, aiming at an unprecedented 5th consecutive Stanley Cup, will, if they realize that objective, have won it 12 times. And the Maple Leafs, along with the Red Wings, have won it 7 times. The Leafs have been in the finals 15 times. Montreal Canadiens have been in the finals the last 10 years, and this marks the 17th time that they have been in the Stanley Cup finals. Bobby Baun. Bobby Baun of the Toronto Maple Leafs getting the gate for interference. Number 21. Baun, who was a standout for the Leafs, in the first game. He got one of their 2 goals.
Bond, 2 minutes pour interférence à 15 minutes 13 secondes. Toronto penalty, Bond, 2 minutes for interference. The time, 15 minutes and 13 seconds.
15 minutes and 13 seconds, the time of the interference penalty against Bond of Toronto. Canadians now have Beliveau, Moore, Bonin up front. Geoffrion, number 5, who now has the puck deep in his own zone, is on 1 point, and Johnson will be on the other if and when they get into the Toronto zone. Here they are, 4 of them out over the line. Geoffrion, he cleared it in on the left side. Bonin going in, and Bauer knocked it to the corner. Beliveau back to Johnson, off the boards. Beliveau has it again. He centered it, and it's picked up by Stewart, and Stewart knocked it on the boards down the ice. The penalty-killing specialist for Toronto, Stewart, number 12, and Pulpit, number 20, are out there as the Canadians start out. It's Moore with Beliveau, who takes the pass on the right side. Beliveau dropped it back to Dickie Moore. Here's Moore around the net, and he lost control of it. Toronto Maple Leaf Stanley hits Pulford with a drive out, and Pulford is coming down with Stewart. Over the line, a drop pass to Stewart, a shot right on, a hot shot. Moore fired it to Beliveau. Beliveau has it intercepted by Stanley. It's cleared back into the Canadian zone, and there are now 50 seconds remaining in the penalty to Bond. Beliveau coming out with Moore and Bonin. Geoffrion's trailing. Beliveau shoots it to the corner. Olmsted is now on for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Beliveau getting it back to the line to Geoffrion. Geoffrion going in for the shot. Rebound off the boards. Out in front it comes. Kelly cleared it, but not out. Geoffrion faked the shot. Over to Moore, into Geoffrion. He takes the shot. Here's Bonin. Bonin turning around on the boards. Still has it. Now he gives it to Beliveau. Beliveau has trouble with it. Back to Bonin. Over in front to Moore. Moore getting set. He shoots. And Bauer took it right off his stick as Stanley and Moore. Now it's Horton and Bonin. Beliveau and Stanley shoving. Moore was set up beautifully, and he backed up just a half stride trying to find the target, but Bauer beat him.
And as Moore backed up that half stride, Danny, Bauer stepped out about a full stride to reduce the angle, and he gave Dickie Moore very little of the net to hit, and of course when the shot did come, Johnny flopped on it and halted play.
And there are 15 seconds remaining in the penalty to Bobby Bond. And he is indicating with putting up one hand, then the other, and another one to indicate 15 seconds. Canadians have Andre Pronovost, Phil Goyette, and Provo. And the Leafs with Olmsted and Kelly up front, and Stanley and Horton on defense. Back it goes. Olmsted scooping it ahead, and it just got over the end of the Canadians players' bench. And there you see Hec Dubois, the Canadian trainer, who tossed that new puck back on the ice. 2-0 the score. Montreal leading Toronto 2-0. A high-flying puck knocked down, and Stanley cleared it down the ice. And there are now 4 seconds remaining in Bond's penalty. He is now back on. Andre Pronovost starting out, a pass to Provo on the right side. Provo over the line. The shot goes off Stanley, and Stanley racked up Provo after the shot to the side of the Leafs net. And Bauer holds on to it. Johnny Bauer and his wife, I think, perhaps gave about the best formula for his tremendous success at the age of 35 or 39. And it's been disputed whether he's 35 or 39. He has lots of talent, but she said the thing that makes Johnny great is will and determination. And he certainly is showing that in these, well, I suppose you could say final years of his career. This was probably his best year. There's his shot right on. Bauer grabbed it off Langlois. And Phil Goyette moves into the circle to face off against Bobby Bond. 2-0. Canadians are leading the Leafs. Back it goes. A shot by Langlois cleared to Regan. Regan around the net. And there are 2 minutes and 20 seconds remaining in the opening period. Here's Brewer starting out, and he's stopped by Phil Goyette. Goyette centers it in front, and Bond cleared it. Now it's Goyette again taking a shot. Brewer fell down. Finally, Armstrong cleared it to the line, but not out. And out it comes and in. Called on the offside.
And the pace has slowed down a little bit, Dan, following the pattern of the Thursday game in which it started off so quickly, Canadians taking a 3-goal lead and then falling into a shell. They have a 2-0 lead here tonight, and the game has slowed down a little bit.
It started out at that very quick, fast tempo. And now, as we have 2 minutes remaining in the second period, slowing perceptibly. Up on the right side, it's Horton. He runs into Langlois, bowls Langlois over. Horton takes the shot, and he hit Harvey. Harvey dashes around the net to get away from Regan, spins from the corner. And now it's Duff after him. Harvey gets it out over the line, deflected by Horton actually to center, and it's Stanley. Stanley, a left wing pass. Checking is getting close, and that's one of the reasons why it has slowed down. Here is Goyette, jammed into the play by Horton and Stanley. Stanley, number 26, a right wing pass to Armstrong. Armstrong coming in, he's working in on the right side, and he couldn't get that good shot away as he was being hurried by Harvey. So Armstrong did a lot of sort of ad-libbing down on the right wing. He'd lose it and pick it up again, and finally, cleverly, put it between the skates of Langlois. 1 minute and 22 seconds. Armstrong tied up this time by Henry Richard. Regan goes in. Now the Rocket is jamming away, trying to get possession. And 1 minute and 13 seconds left. The weather in Montreal tonight, wet snow, good hockey weather. But if you're looking for that very early spring, you wouldn't like it. Talbot around the net, coming out with Rocket Richard. It's fired on the boards, and Stanley back for Toronto. Now we have just about 1 minute remaining in the opening period. 2-0 the score, Montreal leading it. And here's Tom Johnson from outside the line taking the long shot. Armstrong from the corner being watched by Moore. Moore takes it away, loses it. Now Horton got away from Henry Richard. He's at center, a left wing pass to Dickie Duff. Duff going in. Over the other side, there's a shot by Horton. And Plante got in front of it. Plante has pulled off some fine saves in this period. 29 seconds there. There's the Regan. He scores! Larry Regan knocking down that high pass, and he drilled it past Jacques Plante from about 15 feet out. Larry Regan scoring for the Toronto Maple Leafs to put them right back in the hockey game here in the final seconds of the opening period. 2-1, Canadians 2 and the Leafs 1. So Regan never wasted emotion.
Assisté de Armstrong et Duff à 19 minutes 32 secondes. Toronto goal scored by Larry Regan. Assist Armstrong and Duff. The time 19 minutes and 32 seconds.
19:32, and now there are 8 seconds remaining as the Leafs clear it down the ice. Doug Harvey has it before it goes over the goal line. Harvey stopping behind the net, and now the period is over. A breakaway for Geoffrion, but the period is over. And in that period, Canadians outshot the Toronto Maple Leafs 11-10.
2-1 in favor of the Canadiens after a period. Ward Cornell is standing by with some special guests.
With our first guest, our analyst for the NHL Final Series, Milt Schmidt of the Boston Bruins. Well, Milt, what'd you think?
Ward, you can tell that the Toronto Maple Leafs certainly had a talking to by somebody, because they certainly have changed their style of play from the game Thursday night. Thursday night they were coming back with their wings and maybe sending one man in to forecheck, and tonight, why, all three forwards are going in there to forecheck, and they've got those Canadians hanging on right at the present time. And it looks as though that if the Toronto Maple Leafs can continue to forecheck the way they have that first period, they're going to give the Montreal Canadiens a lot of trouble. They might be very fortunate in having a one-goal lead at the present time, because Plant had to come up with two tremendous split saves and also a great save on Armstrong when the Toronto Maple Leafs had a man-to advantage. So if it hadn't been for Plant, why, this game could very easily be tied up right now, or Toronto maybe a goal ahead.
Looks as though Punch Imlach is using an extra line tonight, or using that fourth line a bit more.
He's using it more tonight than he did the last game, perhaps to conserve a lot of energy. Maybe the game might go on into overtime. You never can tell in these playoff games. And, of course, that's quite a capable line, and if he wants to raise a little bit of trouble out there, you might say, why, those three of them, they can raise a lot of trouble out there.
Thanks very much, Milt Schmidt.
You're watching Molson Canadiens Sunday Night Classics on Leafs TV. Goal by Larry Regan has cut the margin to 2-1 in favor of the Canadiens after a period. Bobby Haggart is our special guest, the longtime trainer of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and a gentleman that's utilized a bit on the fourth line with the Leafs in this era is a guy by the name of Jerry James. And I know you have some very fond memories of this guy, Bobby, but he would play in the Canadian Football League with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and then when their season was over, he would join the Leafs. What kind of shape would he have been in after a hard football season to take over playing hockey?
Well, first of all, he was young. Secondly, he was tough. And, I mean, he was a man amongst men. He originally came to Marlborough Juniors when he was 16, 17 years of age. His father, Dynamite Eddie James, was the most valuable player in the CFL. And so he came with a good hockey background, but a much better football player. And in junior hockey, he just dominated everyone when he was on the ice. He was a man amongst teenagers when he played junior hockey. And the deal was with the Leafs, he came to camp, and there was interest in him. They thought he could be an NHL player, but deep down his first love was pro football, and he could immediately step in and be a first-string starter with the Blue Bombers. Whereas if he came with the Leafs, he might have to go to our farm team in Rochester. He may make it, they may bring him up. So he elected football first, hockey second. And so Conn Smythe liked him, and the management liked him, and all the players loved him. And so when his football season would be over, he would come. I think he won the most valuable Canadian player, I think at least twice, playing for the Bombers, and he played in the Grey Cup. And, but boy, was he tough.
Now, you have a story of his junior career and a little incident up in Quebec.
Well, in, I guess, around 53, 54-ish, the OHA, it was called then, made a deal with the Quebec Junior League, and we would play an interlocking schedule, and to bring some more excitement to the game, because eventually the OHA winner played the Quebec winner to go to the Memorial Cup. And so we'd make a trip. All the teams would make one trip through Quebec. The Quebec teams would have to make two because there were so many teams in the OHA. So we would play in Montreal against the Junior Canadiens and the Trois-Rivières Reds, they were called, and then the Quebec Frontenacs. And there was a new team in Jonquière, Quebec, which was way up near Chicoutimi, and it was like a 4-hour bus ride from Quebec. So we played one game up there. And it was
nice and balmy, too.
Oh, it was wonderful spring weather. It was only 48 below. And it was so cold, they didn't have a refrigeration in the arena, and they opened the doors. And I mean, and that's what...
Great ice.
It was terrific ice. So anyway, we played them, and they had one player, and he was kind of their local strong-arm guy. But anyway, by the end of the first period, we were up 5-0, and it wasn't even a contest. But we did have a good team. And by the end of the second period, it was 8 or 9, and the fans were yelling for this strong man to come out and play. And for finally the third period, they put him out. Jerry James went across the ice, challenged him, cold-cocked him, beat you-know-what out of him. He lasted about 2 minutes, and that was the end of the superstar. We end up winning 12-1. We come out to get on the bus to go back to Chicoutimi, and 6 of the windows are broken.
Oh, no.
And the bus, and it's 48 below zero.
We got a
4-hour ride back. And then, ironically, when Jonquière made their tour through southern Ontario, Bruiser wasn't with them.
he caught a little Jerry James flu, did he?
Yeah.
He was an interesting character and a tough
he was
individual.
But he was a terrific. Everybody loved him, and he loved to play. And he played for Runnymede Collegiate when he came here, because all junior players had to go to high school. And he played for Runnymede, and he just demolished football in Toronto. I mean, he was so good.
Great. Jerry James, some stories from Bobby Haggart as the Maple Leafs trailed the Montreal Canadiens 2-1 Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final, April 9th, 1960. This is Molson Canadian Sunday Night Classics on Leafs TV.
The Leafs, we have Stewart, Fulford, and Olmsted. Langlois and Harvey on defense for Montreal, and for the Leafs it's Horton and Stanley. And now the second period officially underway. Olmsted back to Horton on the right side to Stewart, and the Leafs clear it in, and they race in after it with Plant out of the net. Doug Harvey turns. He's knocked down by Bobby Fulford. Recovered. The puck is by Langlois off to the corner. Stewart backhands it in front, and Harvey sends Beliveau away. Beliveau is down over the line with Jeffrey on. Beliveau shoots right on, and the rebound cleared by Bauer. Left wing pass to Olmsted. Knocked away from him by Jeffrey on. Recovered for the Leafs. Cleared on the other side. Stewart playing it back into Horton. Horton to Stanley. Stanley rolled it ahead to Fulford on the left side to Olmsted. Olmsted going in, fakes the shot, turns around, back to Stanley. Stanley got it in front. Stewart takes a shot, a bouncing puck. Olmsted still has it. Olmsted with Jeffrey on against him. It's kicked to the side of the net. Into the corner on the boards is Olmsted. Back to the point to Stanley. He winds up with a shot, and it's tipped out over the line by Langlois. Stanley on the left side. At center for Toronto to Fulford. He cleared it in. Harvey ahead to Beliveau. He's down with Jeffrey on. Beliveau takes the hard drive from outside the line. And Johnny Bauer taking no chances on a big rebound on that. He held on to it. The radio broadcast of this game tonight is being piped into the room at the RCAF station at Cold Lake, Alberta, where 500 young players and their fathers are attending a minor hockey league banquet. After the game, this game, they'll show the film of last year's Stanley Cup, so they're seeing a lot of hockey out there tonight, and we hope, young fellows, that they are feeding you well. Face off to the left of Bauer. Away. Beliveau is down over the line with Jeffrey on. Beliveau shoots right on, and the rebound cleared by Bauer. Left wing pass to Olmsted. Knocked away from him by Jeffrey on. Recovered for the Leafs. Cleared on the other side. Stewart playing it back into Horton. Horton to Stanley. Stanley rolled it ahead to Fulford on the left side to Olmsted. Olmsted going in, fakes the shot, turns around, back to Stanley. Stanley got it in front. Stewart takes a shot, a bouncing puck. Olmsted still has it. Olmsted with Jeffrey on against him. It's kicked to the side of the net. Into the corner on the boards is Olmsted. Back to the point to Stanley. He winds up with a shot, and it's tipped out over the line by Langlois. Stanley on the left side. At center for Toronto to Fulford. He cleared it in. Harvey ahead to Beliveau. He's down with Jeffrey on. Beliveau takes the hard drive from outside the line, and Johnny Bauer taking no chances on a big rebound on that. He held on to it. The radio broadcast of this game tonight is being piped into the room at the RCAF station at Cold Lake, Alberta, where 500 young players and their fathers are attending a minor hockey league banquet. After the game, this game, they'll show the film of last year's Stanley Cup, so they're seeing a lot of hockey out there tonight, and we hope, young fellows, that they are feeding you well. Face off to the left of Bauer. Henry and Maurice Richard with Dick Moore for the Canadiens. Red Kelly, Mahavlich, and Edmondson for Toronto. 2-1 the score with the Canadiens leading. Edmondson, a left wing pass to number 27. That is Mahavlich at center. A long shot deflected at the side, and Talbot for Montreal dumped it ahead in among the spectators. So this period, and there's a real scramble for a souvenir. This period is starting out pretty much the same as the first ended. A slower pace than the hockey that characterized the first 12 or 13 minutes of this hockey game. Now the Leafs with every man up. It goes to Edmondson, a backhand drive. It rolls in front, and Kelly just failed to get it. Here's Brewer at the point, a shot. He's wide. Kelly centered it right in front, and it hopped over Mahavlich's stick. Here's Rocket Richard up with Henry Richard, who takes the pass. Over the line, it's flipped in front, and some nice back checking by Edmondson. Edmondson coming out for the Toronto Maple Leafs. At center, a left wing pass. Mahavlich couldn't get it. Plant cleared it on the boards. Canadians are starting back. Here's Tom Johnson ahead to Henry Richard. He couldn't get it, and it went to Bauer's doorstep. 2-1 the score in the second period. Now Dickie Moore. He centers it inside. Henry Richard couldn't see it. The rocket was tied up. Havlich went right across Bauer's doorstep. A pass goes to Kelly. Kelly is coming down. He's over the line. A drop pass to Edmondson. He couldn't get his shot away. Edmondson backhands it. Here's Mahavlich faking the shot. And it went off Kelly and went across the goal mouth. It's Pocket Richard in over the Toronto line. A pass to Talbot. He's going in a goal. He shoots. Bauer is down. And Bauer making the save on the short side.
One thing that has been very noticeable about Bauer tonight, Danny, he is flopping on every puck that's at all possible for him to do so. He's not taking any chances on rebounds down around the goal crease. He's just stopping and flopping, and Carl Brewer there and Captain George Armstrong probably telling him to keep it up.
It's Phil Goyette on with Andre Pronovo and Provo for Montreal. Duff, Armstrong, and Regan for the Leafs. That is the line that has scored. Langlois intercepts the pass, cleared it in. Now Phil Goyette goes to the corner. He's knocked down by Horton. Horton has it on the board. Now he still has it for Toronto. On the right side to Armstrong. Back to Horton. Horton is starting out into center ice to Regan. Regan coming down with Armstrong. They shoot it into the corner. Off the boards it goes. Provo slapped it back. Duff fired it on the boards. Here's Regan over on the other side. He tips it to Armstrong. Back it goes to Horton. Horton lost it. And he had to go out over the line to get it. Horton off the boards to Stanley. Stanley shooting it in. Langlois. A pass. Andre Pronovo. He couldn't get it. Regan starting back. Fired it in. Big Armstrong is going in for the shot, and he couldn't get it away as he was being tied up by Phil Goyette. There's a pass over on the left wing at center, and Horton fired it back into the Canadian zone. And we're nearing the 4th minute mark in this second period. Here's Horton getting it at the point. He winds up for the shot. It's kicked out by Plant, and that low drive was right on. Langlois for Canadians, jammed in on the boards, picked up. A pass goes to Phil Goyette from Pronovo. The shot wide. Now it's Regan covering up in the corner to the left of Bauer. Canadians get it clear. Here's Provo. Back it goes. Doug Harvey is closing in for the shot. Knocked down by Stanley. Ahead to Dickie Duff. Here's Duff cutting in a goal. He's trying to get in front. And he tried to slide it in front with Plant stopping it. Armstrong taking Harvey in the corner on the boards. Phil Goyette starting out with Provo 14. He has it. In on the Toronto line. A flip shot goes off the knee of Stanley. Bobby Pulford playing it on the boards to number 9. Duff cleared it down the left side. And the Toronto Maple Leafs will be called for icing as Jeffrion touched it. And back they go to the left of Bauer in the north. Bert Olmsted, number 16. Skated out of position now. Brewer moves from the face-off spot back outside the circle. He's coming in to do the honors against Belleville. 2-1 for the Canadians over the Leafs. It's cleared. Belleville racing in. Bauer fired it. Now Belleville has it. Back it comes to Talbot going in for the shot. And Bobby Bond stopped it. Here come the Leafs led by Pulford. Broken up. Recovered by Olmsted. Olmsted's pass dropped by Jeffrion. Jeffrion is going in on the right side. He shoots it. And Bauer had trouble with that one as he finally dove down and got the rebound. Face off to the right of Bauer. And we play 5 minutes and 5 seconds. The next game in the series will be played at the Gardens in Toronto on Tuesday night, and the 4th at the Gardens in Toronto Thursday night. Here's Talbot closing in for a shot. Jeffrion couldn't get it. Jeffrion takes a swipe at it. Leafs clearing it. Olmsted is starting out. A pass, and Stewart failed to pick it up. Bonin rifles it back into the Leafs zone. In behind the net. Bobby Bond, left wing pass to Brewer. Brewer to Olmsted, 16 to Pulford. Pulford down to the Canadian line. He's going in, takes the shot, and Plant just dropped it to the side. 2-1 for the Canadians. Belleville Leaving it for Geoffrion. Geoffrion to center ice. He goes to the Toronto line. Winds up a hard shot right on. But Bauer had it taped and had his stick there. Now Pulford bodied. Geoffrion working the side. He centered it out, and Olmsted was there to get it. Olmsted clearing it out. Here's Bobby Pulford firing it ahead. Talbot down after it, and the Toronto Maple Leafs call for icing as Talbot almost lost his balance with Pulford coming in after him. Scoring in the hockey game, Moore and Beliveau for Montreal and Regan for Toronto, and all the scoring has taken place in the first period, in which Toronto outshot Montreal 11-10. Henry and Morris Richard with Moore. Mahovlich, there's his shot. Bauer got a stick on it. Mahovlich is on with Kelly and Edmondson. A pass to center ice by Mahovlich, grabbed by Moore, who fired it back to the Toronto line, and there's Stanley. Stanley over on the other side to Edmondson. The big boy down on the right side to Kelly. Off his skate. Kelly lost it. Now he's back after Henry Richard. Moore picked it up, going up with the rocket. He's over the line. Moore still has it. Fired it in off the boards. Moore gets it and couldn't center it out. Now it's Horton. Ahead to Edmondson. Into center ice with Kelly and Mahovlich. In over the Canadian line. Here's Edmondson clearing it. And Rocket Richard knocked it back to the corner. Langlois around the net. He's turned around by Mahovlich. Rocket Richard lost his balance, fell down, and here's Henry Richard to the Toronto line. In on the left side. He dumped it over to Dickie Moore, roaring right in, and Moore couldn't knock it down. Toronto Leafs in their own zone. Mahovlich right in front. Now he gets away from Henry Richard. Down to the Canadian line. Stick handling neatly. He tries to get in by Langlois. He couldn't, and Harvey cleared it on the boards. Here's Moore to Rocket to Billy Hickey, who's out on right wing. And Hickey has come out there on that line with Moore and Henry Richard. But the Canadians were just in the process of making a complete change with Backstrom, Hickey, and Marshall coming on. 7 minutes and 22 seconds have gone by in the middle period. Regan, Armstrong, and Duff for the Leafs. Johnson in his own zone, working up on the right side. He ran into Duff, who went down heavily, but Duff got that puck back into the Canadian zone. Talbot working his way out. Clears it on the left wing boards. Out to Marshall. Marshall's tip pass back to center. Regan has it, number 8. His long pass. Billy Hickey starting out on the right side, got away from a check. The pass intended for Backstrom fails to click down into the Leaf zone. Bobby Bond to Armstrong, losing it to Marshall. Here's Marshall centering it out, and it's Duff for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Over to Armstrong. At center to the Canadian line. Armstrong, a hard shot, and deflected by Plante. At center ice, Brewer clearing it to the Canadian line. Now here's Billy Hickey getting a break in on the right side. He's going in a goal. He shoots, and Bauer, I think, got a piece of it with that pad. It was headed for the far side. Toronto Maple Leafs left wing pass going to Dickie Duff, and it's knocked off his stick by Johnson. Duff gets it to Regan. Regan going in for the shot, and Marshall got his stick to deflect it. Montreal Canadiens. Hickey ahead intended for Backstrom, and that doesn't click. Duff fires it to Regan. Back it goes to Brewer. Here's Brewer going in on the right side. He still has it going in, and he flipped it. And Plante did the split to kick it out. A pass, Talbot getting it near the point, not out. Armstrong's sharp angle shot wide. Here's Regan, and the Canadians are starting out on the line. It goes to Marshall, to the Toronto line, in on the left side. Bobby Bond is after Marshall. They fight for it in the corner. Backstrom back to Langlois. He winds up from the point and rolls right in front. Here's Donnie Marshall. Marshall from the corner centers it to the side of the net. And Bauer holds it, and we're nearing the midway mark in this, the second period. Back it goes to Harvey. Slides it over to Langlois. Langlois loses it to Bobby Pulford. He's up for Toronto, in on the left side. He dropped it back, and it's Geoffrion. Geoffrion, a left wing pass over to Bonnet. Bonnet in on the line against Horton. Beliveau keeps it in. Olmsted intercepts, dumped it out. Pulford couldn't knock it down, and Harvey clearing it over to Bonnet. They shoot it into the Toronto zone, and it's Stanley in possession, coming down neatly on the right side. Beliveau is after him. Stanley has it knocked off his stick, and there's an offside with Bobby Pulford going in there ahead of Stanley. A reminder to sportsmen in the St. Boniface and Winnipeg area about the St. Boniface Optimist Sports Dinner at the Winnipeg Arena, April 26th. Beliveau, Red Story, Bob Feller, Yvonne Durrell, and others will be head table guests. Proceeds for the youth of St. Boniface under the jurisdiction of the Optimist Club out there. Here's Doug Harvey. He fires it out. Goes to center. Geoffrion couldn't get away. A left wing pass. Olmsted coming in for Toronto. Over it goes. There's a shot by Stewart. Right on. And Pont had to be brilliant. Out on the left side. Here's Bonnet. A left wing pass to Geoffrion. He overskated it. Bonnet going again into the corner. He's partially bodied by Stanley. They dig in there. Bonnet and Stanley. Now it's Beliveau and Olmsted. And that Bonnet is a dauntless digger in the corners. And you had two pretty solidly built and rough, well-conditioned athletes in Alan Stanley and Bonnet digging away at each other. Face off to the left of Bauer. Plant on the previous leaf rush had pulled off a great save on Ron Stewart. 2-1 the score with the Canadiens leading the Leafs. Out it goes to center. Langlois to Geoffrion, and Bonnet was stranded. And there are 9 minutes and 20 seconds remaining in the second period. Change of players for Toronto and for Montreal.
And while we have a moment, let's just remind fans in the Montreal area that tomorrow afternoon here at the Forum, we have a big doubleheader. The Eastern Professional Hockey League, the first game of the finals, Royals versus Sudbury at 2 o'clock, and then following that, the Brockville Canadiens.
Here's the pocket going in for the shot, and it was Brewer who got in front of it. Brewer is knocked down by Henry Richard. Out to Rocket Richard. Here's the Rocket going in, and he was tied up by Kelly. Pocket Richard, a backhand drive, and he hit Brewer. Into the corner, number 21, Vaughn. Gets it back to the point. The Canadiens clear it in. Now Henry Richard knocked down by Brewer. There will be a penalty here. Canadiens still in possession. Out it goes to Rocket Richard. A shot, a loose puck in front. Canadiens still have it. It goes to Dickie Moore. Moore faked the shot. He's getting in front. A backhand drive. A loose puck in from the net. Here's Talbot going in. And the play is finally stopped. And Brewer is going off. Likely, there you see him right there. Likely high sticking. He's taking that deep breath. And number 18, Carl Brewer, moving to the penalty box.
Carl Brewer, 2 minutes pour avoir retenu. À 11 minutes, 18 secondes. Toronto penalty, Carl Brewer, 2 minutes for holding. The time, 11 minutes and 18 seconds.
11 minutes and 18 seconds, and the Canadiens put on quite a bit of pressure there. Even with the referee's arm upstretched indicating a penalty, they had to wait until the Canadiens lost possession. And it looked as if they might score, and that would wipe out Brewer's penalty. But they didn't, and Brewer is in the penalty box. We have Morris Richard, Henry Richard, and Moore, Geoffrion and Johnson. Horton into the corner. Takes it away from Rocket Richard. 2-1, Montreal leading. The Leafs are shorthanded. Here's the pocket. Into the corner to Moore. He dropped it back to Henry Richard. A shot. And Horton got in front of it. It's Moore again, working from the corner. Olmsted covers up and backhands it as he was covering up in among the spectators. Time of that penalty, 11:18. Holding was the official charge against Brewer of the Leafs. Moore and Beliveau have scored for Canadiens. Regan for Toronto. Back it goes to the point. Johnson cleared it in. A bouncing puck goes high in the air. Knocked down by Bauer. Horton cleared it to the point. Now here's Kelly. Kelly getting a breakaway, going in on the right side. He passed it back, intended for Olmsted, and Johnson cleared it to the corner. Canadians firing it down to the Toronto line. Now Horton. A left wing pass to Olmsted. Olmsted taken in on the boards by Rocket Richard. The pocket lost it to Kelly. Kelly couldn't get by Geoffrion. Leafs are keeping it in. Here's Olmsted cutting it on the left side, and the shot right on. Moore from the corner. Gives it to Johnson coming out. Back to Moore. Moore, Geoffrion, and the Richards. Four of them at center. A right wing pass to Geoffrion. Over the line to Rocket Richard. He couldn't get it. Now Johnson going in. The shot off the boards. It was away wide, and Horton cleared it down the ice. And both clubs in this series so far have been tremendously strong in defending when they have been shorthanded. Now it's Pocket Richard coming up with Donnie Marshall. There's a shot, escape save by Bauer. And it's lobbed down the ice by Stewart. Now Font away out of the net. He falls down in the circle with Fulford coming in after him. Fulford coming in after him. Two to one the score. 26 seconds remaining. And the penalty to Brewer. Langlois to Harvey. Harvey is starting out. Right wing pass to Provo. Down with Goyette in over the Leaf line. It's shot. Knocked down on the boards. Fulford ahead to Stanley. Going down a long pass. Stewart has it. He takes the shot. Deflected by Plante. In among the spectators.
All right, Danny. Henry Richard cut me off very quickly. Brewer indicating the number of seconds left in his penalty. Just a reminder that the Brockville Canadiens are playing the St. Catharines Teepees in the first game of the Eastern Canada Memorial Cup Finals here tomorrow following the Royal Sudbury game.
Leafs every man up for the face-off. Regan and Duff up front. Armstrong is on, but he's back at the line. In a second, they'll have Brewer back on, and he'll go on defense with Bobby Bond. Face off to the right of Plante, 2-1 with the Canadians leading the Leafs, and now Brewer is back on. Left wing pass to Andre Pronovost. He starts out over the line, dumped it ahead, and Regan corrals it back in his own zone. Regan, a long pass off the stick of Duff. It bounces into the Canadian zone. And it's Langlois in on the boards against Duff and Regan. Provo coming out with Goyette. Goyette at center to the Leaf line, back to Provo. Provo takes the shot right on, and that almost handcuffed Bauer. Johnny comes out. That was a low drive. Face off to the left of Bauer. We have 6 minutes and 10 seconds left in the second period. Back to Provo, a shot right on. Bauer comes out, hooked it away. And it's Regan into the corner with Phil Goyette, number 20, in on the boards, and the play is stopped. Canadians defense, Langlois and Harvey playing up. Dickie Duff gets it out quickly on the left side. He's going in, got away from Harvey, loses his balance. Provo takes it. Provo played it to the corner. Now he gets it back again, bodied by Duff. Regan bumped Harvey. They clear it out over the line. Andre Pronovost on the left side to the Leaf line. He overskated it. And now it's Armstrong overskating it. And it looks as if that ice might be a little sticky in spots. Puck doesn't seem to have too much go. It didn't have at that particular time, and now Toronto call for icing, and the face-off will be to the right of Bauer. Packed Montreal Forum, watching this second game of the series. And we have Beliveau coming on with Geoffrion and Bonnet. And it's Mahavlich, Kelly, and Edmondson for the Maple Leafs. 2-1, Canadians are leading it. Beliveau gets it, he's back near the line, played it over on this side to Johnson. Johnson going in, a backhand drive. Bauer holds on to it. Beliveau and Stanley get sticks up on each other, and so does Marcel Bonin along with Edmondson. And there are now 5 minutes and 20 seconds remaining in the second period. Beliveau tied up by Stanley. Bonin to Geoffrion. He backhanded it wide. It's Horton, number 7, clearing it down the ice. Talbot back into the Montreal zone for it. Played it ahead. Big Mahavlich took it away from Geoffrion on the left side into the Canadian zone in the corner. Mahavlich, he centered it in front, and Talbot cleared it to Geoffrion. Geoffrion, Beliveau, and Bonin. Geoffrion stopped by Kelly, and Kelly taken in on the boards heavily by Geoffrion. It's played over on the right wing boards to Beliveau. Beliveau flipped a bouncing shot, blocked by Bauer. Stanley in the corner to Mahavlich. Geoffrion gets it, he takes a shot in front, and is knocked down by Horton. Horton is out with Kelly, Mahavlich, and Edmondson. Over to Edmondson, he's going in for the shot, and he just missed the far corner. Kelly centered it in front, and it's Talbot clearing it down the ice. And the Canadians will be called likely for icing as Stanley touched it.
It's a little difficult to tell from so high up here where we are, Danny, at center ice, but it would seem that the Maple Leafs are skating better tonight. They appear to have a little bit more go than the Canadians, perhaps because, as we were mentioning before, they know they're the underdogs and that they have to work a little harder. But they seem to be skating more freely than the Canadians, and it's telling in the amount of play that they're getting in the game.
Langlois around his net, played it to Rocket Richard, who knocked it to center. Olmsted has it again. Rocket Richard clearing it on the wing, and Brewer scoops it into the Canadian zone. Doug Harvey passes it in front to Henry Richard. He's coming out. A pass intended for Moore, blocked by Bond and cleared in with Fulford and Stewart offside. The Leafs have Olmsted, Fulford, and Stewart. Morris and Henry Richard and Moore for the Canadians. And there are exactly 3 minutes and 59 seconds remaining in the second period. There has been no scoring in this period. All the scoring in the first 20 minutes. Stewart clearing it to Fulford. Fulford a left wing pass to Brewer. Picked up by Olmsted finally. Olmsted over to Bond. Bond is coming down. He shoots it into the corner. Stewart against Harvey. Harvey for the Canadians. Out on the left side. Now Harvey is starting out at center, going to the Toronto line on the right side. He puts on the brakes. Cleared it over on the other side, and out over the line it came. Langlois on the left wing. A pass goes to Henry Richard. He's cutting in. A backhand drive, and Bauer was brilliant on that backhand sizzler. Henry Richard jammed in on the boards and knocked down by Brewer, and the play is stopped for a face-off to the left of Bauer. 3 minutes and 14 seconds remain in this period, and a change once again for both teams. It's exactly 1 year ago tonight, April 9th, that the Leafs and the Canadiens opened their last year's series, and that first game was won by Montreal 5-3. Punch Imlach, he must feel pretty good about the way the Leafs have come on since about the 15th minute mark of that first period. Now Dickie Duff lost it to Marshall, who hooked it out. Horton back to Stanley. Stanley takes his time. He gives it to Regan. Here's Regan starting in. A pass to Armstrong. He takes the shot, and it was partially blocked by Talbot. Talbot jammed in on the boards. It's left there for Backstrom. He loses it to Duff. Duff getting it out, and it's cleared on the left side, but not out. It's Regan into Duff. Duff having difficulty against Backstrom. Canadians clearing it from the corner. Marshall loses it to Armstrong. Armstrong getting it back to the line. No one there to get it. And here comes Bauer out of the net, and he cleared it among the spectators. And we have two goalies who are wandering and exciting the fans tonight. Johnny Bauer came out there about 35 to 40 feet. And there are 2 minutes and 28 seconds remaining in this second period. 2-1 the score. Montreal 2 and Toronto 1. Puck back into the center ice area. Johnson ahead to Backstrom, cutting in against Horton. They bump on the boards and the Leafs clear it out. Talbot gives it to Hickey. Hickey a pass to Backstrom. Marshall finally got it. Marshall cleared it in front, and it's Horton turning around. Horton starting out for Toronto with Armstrong, Regan, and Duff. Horton winds up a hard drive, and Plante got his arm on it. Now the puck at center. Stanley clearing it back. Here's Backstrom coming in with Marshall. Backstrom over the line, fed it ahead, but the Leaf winger Armstrong was back to get it. Lays it out on the left side, and we have less than 2 minutes remaining. And it's peculiar how this game follows so many patterns, but the wind-up of this period, pretty much like the wind-up of the first one. Here's Beliveau taking a long shot, handled easily by Bauer. Mahavlich around the net for Toronto. He's coming out, a long pass at center ice. Johnson clearing it back. Here's Mahavlich coming down. He has Kelly with him in on the line. Mahavlich trying to work by Johnson, going in, and it was Talbot who cleared it. Beliveau for Montreal with Geoffrion. Bonin coming up too. Geoffrion taken out of the play, and Horton cleared it in among the fans once again. Minute and 2 seconds remaining. And there you have two spectators who have very good seats. Dangerous, but good. Right down along the ice level over on the west side to the right of the Leafs players bench. Face off outside. Toronto line. Fulford, Olmsted, and Stewart. In the scoring, Kelly is the leader with 10 points. Geoffrion is next with 9. Neither Kelly nor Geoffrion has figured in the scoring here tonight. Langlois backhands one. 1 minute remaining.
Last minute of play in the second period.
And that's called back for being shoved ahead by the player with a gloved hand, and the Leafs don't like it. All set for the face-off. Now it's down the ice. Back goes Langlois, and Langlois touches it. So it's called for icing against the Leafs. Junior Langlois is a player who has really come into his own as a member of the Montreal Canadiens this year. He has played regularly, has played well, and he attributes much of his success this year to confidence and the chance that he has been given to play regularly, or at least the chance that he has made for himself to play regularly with his improved play. Now Canadians every man up, and Geoffrion moves out of position. A rolling puck to Bauer's doorstep, and Brewer takes Geoffrion out of the play as Bauer picked it up. Harvey and Langlois up on the Toronto line. Bon and Beliveau on the draw. Geoffrion going to the corner. He cleared it back, and the Leafs pick it up. It's Olmsted. He's coming down. A pass goes to the right side. Stewart dropped it back. Olmsted couldn't get it. Now Stewart takes a shot, knocked down in front by Harvey. We have 35 seconds remaining. Harvey out for Montreal. A right wing pass to Geoffrion. Geoffrion going in. He gives it to Doug Harvey. Harvey is bumped by Bon, and they both go down, and Olmsted clears it down the ice. With 20 seconds remaining, Langlois again is back for it. And the face-off will be to the left of Bauer. On that pass back to Harvey from Geoffrion, he was just getting set to work in close for a shot when he was belted by Bon. 2-1 the score. Montreal 2 and Toronto 1. Beliveau still out there, facing off against Stanley. On the face-off, Beliveau is tied up by Stanley. Beliveau gets it to Bonin. Bonin trying to center it. They jam in, and they fall down. And here's Horton with 10 seconds remaining in the period. Horton is belted by Beliveau. Bobby Bon goes against Beliveau, and Doug Harvey went in there and hit Bobby Fulford solidly. And this is the first real flare-up. Geoffrion trying to move into squaring off quarters. Bonin is talking to Fulford, and they seem to be the two likely fistic potentials at the moment. Bonin talking to Horton, and that comes with about 6 seconds remaining in the second period. I imagine we'll have penalties here. Beliveau and Fulford maybe, but it's difficult to really pick out who would get penalties on a mix-up like that. Charging, Harvey is going over toward the penalty bench, talking to Eddie Powers. Harvey will go off for charging as he charged in against Fulford. And Fulford himself is going off. I think he's working toward the penalty bench. So Fulford and Harvey getting penalties.
À Toronto, Bob Fulford, à Canadien Doug Harvey, 2 minutes chacun pour assaut, à 19 minutes 54 secondes. The penalties to Toronto, Bob Fulford, to Canadien Doug Harvey, 2 minutes each for charging. The time, 19 minutes and 54 seconds.
At 19 minutes and 54 seconds in the second period, Harvey of Montreal for charging and Fulford of Toronto for charging. So they're playing 5 aside as this period comes to an end. And we have Moore and Henry Richard as the forwards for Canadians, Kelly and Olmsted, 2 veteran and proficient workmen for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Out it comes to center. Johnson fires it in. Horton takes it behind the net, and the siren goes to end this second period. And the score at the end of the second, it is 2-1 for the Montreal Canadiens.
No scoring in the second period, still 2-1 in favor of the Montreal Canadiens after 40 minutes of play in Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final 1960. And Bobby Haggart is our guest. Bobby, as a trainer, it's a difficult situation, I guess, and many times to walk the fine line because you are a club employee and yet you are working with the players and things of that nature. And the old adage, I guess, the unwritten rule that is in every club dressing room, what you hear here, what you say here, when you leave here, let it stay here, is very appropriate as far as the training staff is concerned. I'm sure it is no different in your days.
That's the code that everybody understood. It was never written anywhere, but everybody understood that. What is said in the dressing room stays in the dressing room. There was always rumblings in various pro sports and teams that the owner or the general manager may have, through the training system, the stick boy, the clubhouse attendant or whatever, that might be running tails up to head office and keep an eye on what you hear. That never existed in Toronto. Imlach was really fair, and Imlach understood, because Imlach was a player, Imlach was a coach, Imlach was a general manager, and one of the great strengths he brought when he came to the Leafs was he was a former owner. So Imlach really knew the business much better than a whole lot of people understood the day he arrived. And his theory with me, and I worked for him for 10, 11 years, was that if there's something you think I should know, which means is it a serious injury, then by all means, you know, don't hang me out to dry game time, or don't let something get to the press and then I look like a fool, so come and tell me. But beyond that, there was never any pressure whatsoever from Imlach on, hey, Bob, what's going on in the dressing room? No.
Injuries were treated a little differently than they are now. It wasn't documented and things of that nature as often. If the guy was hurt, he might come to you, and then sometimes he might not.
Well, again, there was the unwritten law of the jungle. First of all, you wanted to play. Players love to play. And secondly, you never wanted to lose your job. There wasn't a players' association in those days. Excuse me. And boy, you didn't want to get sent to the minors because you might not come back. And so a lot of fellas learned to play with pain. And we had some very simple systems. between management, doctors, and in my case being the trainer, that if a player got cut, remember they didn't wear helmets and guys were getting clipped over the eyes and the nose and the chin all the time, that if you could stop the bleeding, patch them up, and not miss a shift, and we would sew them up between periods, and boom, go back out again. So it was always the trainer's discretion. Oh my God, it needs 15, so we better get them in now, versus it needs 5, and I can stop, whatever. And so between periods would be a lineup. And the theory was that the home team always supplied the doctors for the visiting team. Visiting teams never brought their doctors except in the playoffs. And so the rule of thumb was, if there was 2 players that had to be stitched, one was a visiting player and one was the home player. Home player's first. He gets in and gets out. But there's a terrific story of the doctor of the New York Rangers, a Japanese man by the name of Dr. Yanagasawa. And he was the head doctor for the Rangers and the Knicks, never saw a game. Sat in the medical office, smoked cigars, played gin, and you'd bring your player in, and he knew all the trainers. He was a fabulous man, and he'd have a suit coat on, he'd have a cigar. You couldn't see any of the tools for the smoke. And you could be standing there, the player could be bleeding, and he'd say, "We got 1 hand to go."
One hand of gin to go.
1 hand of gin to go. And somebody'd say, "Gin," he'd say, "All right." And he would take off his jacket, and he had the 6-shooter in a holster, and then he had a heater. And he had the cigar, and he'd be bending over you, and you couldn't see the face of the player for the smoke. And he'd be sewing away, and then he'd wipe him up and say, "Okay, get him out of here, he's okay."
And get back to the game.
Put the jacket back on. Dr. Yanagasawa, the great doctor of the New York Rangers.
And not much of a hockey fan, but a good gin fan.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. As long as the Rangers kept playing, he didn't care.
Bobby Haggard is our guest. The Leafs trail 2-1 at the end of the second period. I'm not going to see him. And we'll be back with more. This is Molson Canadiens Sunday Night Classics on Leafs TV.
This portion of Leafs TV is brought to you by Summit View Homes, committed to value and quality.
2-1 in favor of the Montreal Canadiens after 2 periods of play. Let's go back to the forum now for more intermission activity.
Okay, Ward, and I guess all you viewers won't have any trouble at all recognizing the fellow sitting next to me, Sid Abel, present coach of the Detroit Red Wings, a great player with the Red Wings, and a one-time coach of Chicago, too. Sid, it must be a bit of a relief to you to sit up here and watch the game and not have any direct responsibility.
Al, it's wonderful to sit here, just as you mentioned, and relax. I don't care if the Canadians or Toronto win, and it's a very, very good period of hockey.
Sid, your line mates are also in town, former line mates, Gordie Howe and Ted Lindsay. You were a great line. Just what makes a line such as yours click? How did you come together?
Well, there are several factors, Al. I think, first of all, skating is a very important factor. I've always stressed, now that I'm in coaching, talking to one another, and by talking, the players will get into holes and help one another, especially when you're in the attacking zone. We're seeing several fine lines out here tonight, and I think just when they get working together and talking to one another, they make passes that actually look blind, but through practice, they know that the fellow's there.
Sort of automatically.
Definitely.
Well, in training camp, as a coach, do you try and pick out the fellows who you think will go together, and if so, what do you look for?
Well, coordination in center icemen. I mean, fellows that can pass both to their left and their right. Fellows that are good puck carriers. Usually the center iceman has to carry the puck for the line, although in the case of the line of Ted and Gordie and myself, Gordie was the puck carrier, and Teddy was the spirit and the drive, and I was more or less the garbage man.
Have you got any young players coming up?
Oh, we have several. I think we're on our way back again now.
Well, Sid, I wish we had more time here, but some very interesting guests are waiting. Your former line mates with Ward Cornell.
And we have the other 2 members of that famous line with us now, Gordie Howe and Ted Lindsay. And do you pretty well agree with what Sid said, that a line just sort of happens, Gordie?
Well, what I heard of it, I believe he's quite right, but to the certain fact that there's a lot of luck involved, and I was very lucky to come along with 2 great hockey players, and I spent a lot of time after hours and studied Ted, as a matter of fact. He didn't know it at the time, but I studied his habits so I'd actually know where he was. The talking definitely helps. The admiration towards one another, I think that's a great deal of success, and we certainly had it, and I'm very happy. That's the reason I'm here today.
Well, tell me, Ted, did you work on it as a line that over and above practice at all, or not?
Well, I think, Ward, as games go on, the individuals, of course, with their own ability, you complement each other, and instinctively, as the play develops, you go down the ice, and instinctively you move into certain pockets or certain holes, and from there you throw what we consider blind passes, but through practice and through playing together, you know that the individual should be there.
Well, that line, of course, played in many Stanley Cups. And is there anyone in particular that sticks out in mind, Gordy?
Well, the one I think Ted will agree with, we got a big chuckle over it, was the year we played Toronto, and Todd Sloan got hurt in Detroit, and there's headlines the next day in Toronto paper stating that if either Ted or myself showed up in Toronto on the ice, we'd be shot. And I was asked if I was concerned about it, and I said no, because I said maybe it's just some crackpot, but Father Bob over in Chicago, he's talking to us, and he stated for everyone locked up, there's 4 loose, and it gives you a little concern. So Marcel Bonin, who is playing for the Canadiens now, we're going to make a real hero out of Marcel. We told him he could go out there with our number 7 on his back, number 9 out in front, and to see how serious that man was.
And it was nice of him to offer it, or did you talk him into it?
Well, we didn't actually talk him into it, because Marcel, he's a colorful individual and very strong. I guess maybe he had to spinach that more and figured he could knock off anything they shot at him.
Actually, are you bothered much during the season and the off-season, Ted, with phone calls from cranks or people wanting to have you answer questions and so on?
On a thing like that, Ward, you have an unlisted number, and the only people that have your number, you think anyway, are your friends. And of course, if your friends are going to start calling you at early hours in the morning, you must have really played bad.
Well, you know, Ted and Gord, one of the questions I'm asked most about professional athletes, hockey players, football players, everybody, does a pro hockey player really play just for the money?
Well, I've always firmly believed that first, any sport, any professional sport I'm talking of, you have to love the game to play it. No human being would take the punishment that we take without loving it, but then also don't lose sight of the fact that it is a profession and it's big business today, and it's up to the individual to keep himself in good condition and get as much money out of it as while he possibly can. The better condition he's in, the better he's going to play, and the further the team will go, say, in the finals, consequently more bonuses he makes and more security for the future.
How do you feel about this, Ted?
I go along with Ted. It's very well put, Ted, and I think as an example to show how much truth there is in that, you take in baseball around Detroit area, Diz Trout, who was a great pitcher in his day, he has lost, as a matter of fact, a couple of jobs over the fact that he loves the game of baseball, and when asked if he'd go out and pitch a few innings to raise money for the youngsters, he'll do just that, and he's got himself into a little trouble. And then you find out when we were going on exhibition games like up in Michigan State College, the ice was wonderful, the air conditioner was nice and cool, and you feel you could skate there all night, and they had trouble getting us off the ice. We just like it.
Speaking of ice, when you play in the different rinks around the circuit, is there much difference between the ices, the ice surfaces?
Definitely so. We find, at least I do, that Detroit has wonderful ice. Here in Montreal, they have great ice, and the rest of cities like Toronto, the ice is a little chippy. Why, we do not understand. And in Chicago, they had a little trouble. Ted will explain to that. They had a little water on the ice, and the humidity in there, it was really tough sledding at times.
Yeah, we have a problem there. They put a new ice plant, a new floor in there last year, but I just don't know what it is. Whether, of course, they have a basement underneath the Chicago Stadium, and whether it would be from the fact of the heat underneath causing that floor to sweat and maybe not freezing and making that ice a little bit sugary, I'm just not sure, but it's a problem that I sure wish that they would lick.
When ice is chippy or slow, I suppose you don't like this. Do you do anything in between periods at all? Do you sharpen your skates or anything?
Old fellas like myself, slow ice doesn't hurt us, but some of these young kids that are in the game, like young Henri Richard and Backstrom and that, actually it's a handicap to them and it's an advantage to us, but it doesn't make for a good hockey game. You can't control the puck as well, and an all-over picture is just not as good as it should be.
Getting back to the business of being a professional hockey player, what are some of the things you don't like about it, Gordy? Surely there must be something in the job.
Well, I think all players will agree when it gets now down near the end of the season, naturally holding at any time in the game kind of irks an individual. But I find my biggest complaint, and this is not because I'm lazy, I just try to conserve myself and save myself for the game, And then the latter part of the season, just putting on a uniform to go and practice, that's a little tough. And everybody cries about it at that time of the year, but it's a necessity and we have to do it.
What do you think, Ed?
I have only one complaint. As I said before, we're professional athletes and we love the game, but we play every Christmas in Boston, and I think that they could do without Christmas games. I think that we should spend Christmas with our families at home. I think everybody should be home at Christmas when the youngsters get up in the morning.
I'll vote for that.
That's my complaint.
Gordy, here's a question I'm asked a lot about you. Perhaps you're asked yourself, how old are you?
How young?
Yeah, how young are you? Excuse me.
Well, I can't lie about this certain point because this is my 14th year in the league, and it'd make it a little illegal if I should say I'm under 32. As a matter of fact, I just turned 32 last March 31st.
And hair's getting a little thin on top of the head, too.
Yeah, you know which side I give the camera to then.
One other quick question before we close it off. In your contracts as with whatever team you happen to be with, are you free to do anything in the off-season you want? For example, supposing you wanted to drive in the Indianapolis Speedway or the Sebring races or anything. Are you free to do this or not?
I think it would depend on the individual and how much ability he had. I mean, if they thought he was an untouchable, they wouldn't want him driving in the Indianapolis Speedway, but maybe the way he played at the end of the season, they might like to see him drive.
Well, what about something simple like baseball? Are you permitted to play baseball?
Well, I was playing that semi-pro league in northern Saskatchewan, and I believe it's semi-pro anyway. They did put up a couple of dollars for you to pass your time at it. But I was spiked while playing third base, and I had blood poison, and I got a letter from the general manager, and he stated, which is quite true in saying so, that I might hinder my hockey profession by getting hurt. So I stayed out of the game for a little while until I healed up, and then I went back in, and about a week later, I sent a wire back asking if he was serious. And I got a prompt answer, and all the letter said, or the telegram stated, was, I am serious. Was our general manager.
Thank you very much, Gordie Howe, Ted Lindsay.
You're watching Molson Canadian Sunday Night Classics on Leafs TV.
Teams are back on the ice, and the third period will be underway in just a moment or two. Canadians finding out that Goyette and Provo and Johnson, and then the regular entourage after Pocket Richard. 2-1 the score. Moore and Beliveau have scored for Montreal, and Regan for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Bauer in the nets down in the south end in this period, and Jacques Plante to our right down in the north end. It'll be Olmsted on with Stewart for the Leafs. They'll just have two forwards, as the Canadians will have two, with Harvey and Pulford, with 1 minute and 54 seconds remaining in their charging penalties, picked up at 19:54 in the second period. 2-1, Canadians 2, and the Leafs 1. Eddie Powers drops the puck, and it goes to Talbot, who slaps it over to Johnson. Johnson slides it ahead to Provo. Shoots it in to the side of the net, and Bauer cleared it into the corner. Olmsted flipped it back to Stanley. Here's Stanley around the net. Comes right in front, gets a long pass intended for Olmsted, knocked down. Provo lost it, and Olmsted himself, in clearing it back, had that chop shot go right to Bauer's doorstep. Here's Stewart coming out with Horton. Stewart, number 12 at the Toronto line. Olmsted leads on the play. There's a long shot. They race in after it. Slot out of the net. Provo jammed in on the boards. And it's Johnson from the corner for Montreal. He's being watched by Olmsted. Flips that long pass that fails to click off the boards back to the Toronto line. Stanley over to Horton, up to number 16, Olmsted. Olmsted couldn't get anywhere against Talbot. Provo tried to get a break. Skated out by Horton, and number 12 at Stewart. Stewart veers over on the right side, shoots it in. And now there are 52 seconds remaining in the penalties to Harvey and Pulford. Olmsted clearing it back to the point. Now Talbot trying to send his man away. Henry Richard starts in. He has Talbot with him. The pocket takes the high drive. Bauer clearing. Stewart for the Leafs from the corner. Over on the other side to Stanley. Stanley weaving out. Comes to center ice. Shoots it from outside the line, and Plante had no difficulty with that shot. And now, in 20 seconds, the penalized players will be back on. Kelly is on with Mahavlich. And, of course, playing 5-a-side, they're playing it rather carefully. Brewer goes in to pick up the puck around the net, and Harvey and Pulford now coming over the boards. They're back on the ice as Big Mahovlich races for the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's going in on that right side. And Mahovlich, a great rush. Now Kelly over on the other side of Brewer. Brewer shoots it in off the boards, and it's Johnson picking it up for Montreal. Here's Johnson digging out. He has Geoffrion with him. Geoffrion has the pass over the line. Geoffrion drops it back, and Fulford has for Toronto. Fulford coming out with Kelly. And Mahovlich takes the pass over to Kelly. He's going in, and Johnson deflected the shot. In on the boards, into the corner, Fulford for Toronto. He tries to center it out, and Johnson has it for the Canadiens. A lead pass to Beliveau over to Geoffrion. Geoffrion across the line, winds up for the shot, but Brewer deflected it. Out it comes to center ice. Langlois is now on the ice for Montreal, shoots it into the Toronto zone, and it's Brewer in behind with Edmondson. On the board to go, stopped by Bonnet. He cleared it back toward the corner, and Brewer fired it in the air in among the spectators, and we have played about 3 minutes in the third period. 2-1 the score, Canadiens leading the lead. That fan had to do a little walking to get the souvenir, and he seemed to be unmolested. But I bet that wasn't the situation when he reached the point where it was to be picked up. Armstrong, Duff, and Regan for the Leafs. Beliveau, Bonnet, and Geoffrion for Canadiens. And it's Regan. In front of the net to Horton. Horton, number 7, turns in the corner, played it behind the net. Up it goes from Duff to Armstrong. Ahead, Duff couldn't get it. Langlois to Bonnet. Over to Geoffrion. Broken up by Stanley. Stanley racing for it. And Harvey cleared it in the air off his stick. Geoffrion, a pass over to Beliveau, the big fellow going in. He tried to pass it back. He does. Here's Geoffrion closing in for the shot. And a booming shot just wide. Beliveau back to Langlois. Broken up by Stanley. Stanley to Duff up on the left side. Duff cutting toward the corner. Played it on the board. Clawed out of the net. Lost his stick. Regan trying to center it. Into the corner, it's Beliveau. Beliveau loses it momentarily. Recovered by Harvey. Harvey having difficulty against Regan and Duff. And Plante now picks up that stick that was on the ice near the corner. Nearing the 4th minute mark in the third period. 2-1, and there has been no scoring since the opening period.
And Jacques Plante continues to be perhaps the most colorful player on the ice, and perhaps also the most effective, at least from the Canadiens' point of view. Good shot of Eddie Powers and Tom Johnson, and Eddie has something that is giving him pause to chuckle a little bit. Just about ready to go. Andre Pronovo going off, and Powers is now ready.
And Toe Blake has made a switch on that Pronovo-Goyette line. Donnie Marshall has gone to left wing for Andre Pronovo. Canadiens cleared into the center ice area. Bond tipping it back. It's Stewart going in, a pass to Fulford, and he couldn't get it. Johnson ahead to Marshall. Marshall is down to the left wing to Phil Goyette. Goyette couldn't get the shot away. Spun around by Bobby Bond. Now Stewart takes it around the Leaf net. Up on the left wing to Olmsted, across his own line at center with Bobby Fulford. In over the line, Olmsted offside on the other wing. It's Stewart. And they face off at the Montreal Canadian line with 4 minutes and 15 seconds having gone by in this third period. Puck loose at center, Brewer. Fired it to the corner. It's Talbot turning, playing it into the other side. Johnson having difficulty. Olmsted fired it across the goal mouth. And it's Talbot, number 17 for the Canadiens, out on the right wing to Provo. Provo to Goyette. Goyette down at center. He has Donnie Marshall with him. Marshall, number 22, cutting in, and a high drive. As there's another shot, this time by Provo. And he missed the far side. Puck goes sliding down the ice to the Montreal zone, turning in his own line. Talbot, the pass for Provo, too far ahead. Provo gets it. He's coming in with Goyette. Provo trying to get the shot, taken on the play. Now Goyette has it. He centered it back. And the Leafs are starting back with Stewart and Olmsted. Stewart winds up for the shot. Deflected by Plant. Johnson in the corner. Having trouble against Olmsted. Olmsted across around the net. Now he's around again. Turning. Gets a pass back to Stewart. And Stewart has it knocked away by Marshall. Goyette, number 20. Olmsted knocked it away. Gets it. He centers it. Back to the point. It goes to Bobby Bond closing in. And Canadians. Donnie Marshall falls down. Couldn't get it away to Provo. It goes over on a open right wing. 5 minutes. 20 seconds have gone by. It's Brewer to Mahovlich. Canadians snap it back. Marshall clearing it down the ice. Bond touches it. And as Marshall shot that puck from the Canadian side of the center ice checkered line, it's brought back for icing against Montreal. 2-1 for the Canadians over the Leafs in the third period. There's Red Kelly. Canadians clearing it out. Rocket Richard down with Henry Richard. The Rocket, a backhand drive, and he hits Stanley. Mahovlich from the side of the net. Dumped that pass up. Kelly couldn't get it, and it's Harvey in possession for Montreal. Gives it to Moore. Moore to Rocket Richard. Over to Henry Richard. He's putting it on the right side, and Horton got a stick in front of it. It bounces on the ledge in the corner. Kelly ahead to Edmondson, who goes around the net, and it's Mahovlich coming up at center ice, hitting that Canadian line on the right side. The big fellow going in, right into a goal. He shoots, and Plant a great save. And what a play that was by Mahovlich. Here's Henry Richard in over the line, a drop pass for the Rocket. He's trying to get in position, and Kelly took it away. Kelly going in on the right side. Langlois jammed him on the play. Kelly still has it. He tries to center it. Now Kelly again. He's getting it back to Stanley at the point over on this side of Horton. He winds up, and that shot hit Langlois. Henry Richard down for Montreal to the Toronto line, in on the left side. He's turned around by Horton, taken in on the boards. And Edmondson clearing it up on the boards to center ice, and the tempo is picking up considerably. 2-1 for Montreal over Toronto. Harvey knocked down by Duff. Henry Richard with Moore. Broken up at the Leaf defense. Horton is rushing. Lost it off his stick. Harvey works his way to center. A pass on the left side to Moore. Moore drops it back. And it's Regan for Toronto. He has Duff and Armstrong with him. Regan over the line. Shoots it. And oh, he just missed that far corner. Into the corner. Langlois clearing it to Beliveau. Beliveau having difficulty against Armstrong. Here's Geoffrion. On the right side, lost it back into the corner. Harvey in possession around the net. It comes to Bobby Bond at the point. He broke his stick. Puck comes out over the line. Bonnet back to Beliveau. Beliveau to Geoffrion. Geoffrion across the line, and Beliveau couldn't get the pass back. Toronto Maple Leafs starting out. It's Armstrong. Oh, he was spun around by Harvey. Geoffrion having trouble against Duff. Duff lost his stick. Harvey clearing it into Beliveau. Beliveau to Geoffrion, and the pass was high. Bonnet from the corner. Failed to clear it out. Armstrong in on the attack. It's cleared back. Talbot a backhand drive. And out it comes to the blue line to Regan. Regan is coming up with Duff over the line. A pass to Dickie Duff. He's going in for the shot. And it was blocked by Plant. Into the corner, shoving Duff and Talbot. And the play is stopped for the face-off in deep Canadian territory. And some of the best hockey of this game and perhaps of the series in the last 4 or 5 minutes. Montreal 2 and Toronto 1.
Well, they say that in the playoffs you can expect to see close checking, and we haven't seen very much of it here in this third period. The game has opened up very much. The Leafs skating very freely in the game, and particularly in the latter stages of the game from the perhaps the 10-minute mark of the second period on, and here again in this third period, and it's wide open and anybody's hockey game.
Canadians 2 and the Leafs 1, and we have 11 minutes and 32 seconds remaining in regulation time as Talbot circles around the net. A pass off the boards. Provo couldn't catch it. Stanley clearing it back. Here's Johnson ahead to Phil Goyette. Goyette to the Toronto line. Dumped it on this side to Marshall. Marshall to Goyette. Over to Marshall from the left side. He tried to pass it back, and Stanley cleared it. Not out. It's Talbot dumping it to the corner to Marshall. On the boards it comes. Stewart ahead. Olmsted gobbles it up, shoots it in, and Plant stopped that one without being tested, really. Now it's Goyette coming down. Pass out over the line. Back checking with Stewart. It's back to the Toronto line. Now Provo working his way in. Offside. He went in and reached back for the puck. 10 minutes, 39 seconds remain in third period. Joe Blake, he's not behind the bench coaching in a game tonight, the type of which you could be confident about the outcome. This is anybody's hockey game. Here's Goyette. Goyette turning around, fire at the backhander. It hit Pulford. Goyette gets it again, and it's knocked off his stick by Pulford. Number 10 for Montreal, Johnson, a backhand drive off the target. And that's Horton around the net. He's coming out for Toronto. He has a good turn of speed, a left wing pass. Johnson ahead. Provo again couldn't get it, and Stanley played it to center. Here's Talbot coming in with Phil Goyette. Talbot takes the shot. Anna Horton got his stick in front of it, and it ricocheted about 30 or 40 seats up there above that exit. Face-off, Moore gets it. Screen shot, and Bond closed his legs on it. The Leaf defense, Bond and DeBrewer. If you've just joined us, in the first period, it was Moore and Belleville for Montreal and Regan for Toronto, and that has been the scoring so far in the game. Edmondson and Moore move in too close. Rocket Richard tipped it as he swung at it, and it's Kelly for the Leafs. Kelly around the net. After him is Moore up on the left side. Mahovlich couldn't knock it down. Doug Harvey ahead, knocked down by Mahovlich, and Harvey cleared it. Rocket Richard coming out. At center, he shoots a long one off the boards. Brewer around the net with Henry Richard knocking him down. Edmondson cleared it to Kelly. Kelly's pass intercepted by Harvey. Harvey waits for the man to get onside, gave it to Moore, to Rocket Richard. The Rocket into the corner. Now he's getting set. Centered it back. Langlois going in for the shot. The Rocket right in front, and he's tied up and knocked down by Brewer. Here's Mahovlich for the Leafs. A pass to Edmondson. Edmondson is out with Kelly. Mahovlich trailing. Edmondson going in on the right side, and a backhander was wide. Edmondson again. Henry Richard out for Montreal. A pass to the Rocket. Over the line, offside. As the Rocket made the turn to the left, Henry Richard went in offside. Edmondson and Rocket Richard getting sticks up on each other. In the corner, Brewer covering up on Pocket Richard. Bobby Bond and Dickie Moore seem to be just spectators. And the officials, of course, trying to dissuade them to give up any thought of fisticuffs, and he didn't have to do too much dissuading because it was just one of these not too vigorous type of shoving sessions with sticks a bit high. 8 minutes and 59 seconds remaining in the third period. 2-1 for the Canadiens over the Leafs. And it's Armstrong, Regan and Duff, and Goyette, Marshall and Provo for Montreal. Stanley, a pass to Horton. He's breaking out through center ice. Fires it on the left side. Provo intercepted. And to the Leaf line it goes to Stanley. Stanley, 26, having difficulty, and Goyette almost got it. Now Armstrong at his pass partially blocked. It's Stanley coming out again. A pass goes to Regan on the left side. Duff is going in after it. To the right of the Canadian net. It hit the side of the net, and Johnson laid it into the corner. Armstrong falls down, and it's Talbot, number 17, on the right side of Provo. Coming out with Goyette. Goyette coming down to get the pass. He has it over the line. Goyette has spun around. Armstrong rolled it right in front. Now Armstrong around the net, working his way out. Marshall and Armstrong go to the ice very heavily. Stanley over to Regan. Regan winds up for the shot. Rebound back to Dickie Duff, into the corner to Regan. Regan trying to center it, and Talbot blocked that one. In on the boards, back it comes to Horton, out over the line, and Armstrong is back for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Armstrong ahead to Regan to Duff. Canadians Provo on the right wing boards to Marshall. Down to the Toronto line. Marshall takes the shot, and Bauer blocked it. On the right side, Armstrong, a pass comes out over the line. Marshall backhanding it in, 2 on the score, as time is beginning to run out in the third period. Now it's intercepted by Beliveau. Beliveau into the corner, shoots it across the goal mouth. Geoffrion tried to pass it out, and Stanley has it for Toronto. Up to Duff, and he scooped it down the ice. Backboard for the Canadians, number 17, Talbot. And now we have just over 7 minutes and 10 seconds remaining in the third period.
In any game that is played here in Montreal, it's only natural that the fans are going to be predominantly for the Canadians. And of the 14,520 here tonight, I guess you'd have to admit that just about everybody but Punch Imlock and the fellows in front of him are pulling for the Habs. And they're not very happy about the work of Eddie Powers. On 3 or 4 occasions, they've really given him the raspberry.
Canadians, every man up. Geoffrion couldn't hold it. Harvey cleared it ahead. It's out. Brewer to Pulford. Here's Pulford coming down. In on the Canadian line. A pass over to Stewart going in. And he fell down and the puck rolled upon doorstep. And that was a close call. Bonin in the corner. Olmsted getting it back. Bobby Baun, a shot, a screen shot. Plante didn't even see it. Now it's Olmsted. He centers it and Beliveau grabbed it. Beliveau clearing it among the spectators. This Bobby Baun, Frank, he has unveiled just one tremendous point shot here in this series. Of course, we haven't seen him too much during the year, but the other night, and that one he let go, that was just a bullet drive.
A very determined young hockey player, Danny, and he's, from all reports, come into his own this year. Bobby Baun, number 21, had a great year for the Leafs and has played very effectively in the playoffs.
From the face-off, out it comes down to the Leaf line. Brewer taking it there with Geoffrion forechecking. Bonin couldn't get anywhere. Holford coming up, a pass to Olmsted behind him. He dropped it back to the side of the net. Here's Stewart of the Leafs, losing it to Beliveau. Beliveau is starting out. A pass to Bonin, number 18, down at center, back to Beliveau over the Leaf line. Beliveau jammed out of the play by Stewart. Baun bumps with Geoffrion. Now Brewer took Bonin out of the play, and they're beginning to bump it a bit. Here's Beliveau from the corner centering it, and this time Brewer ahead to Olmsted. It couldn't get it, and it slides down to the Montreal line. Doug Harvey back for Canadians, coming out slowly. Pass to Geoffrion. Geoffrion through center ice to the Leaf line, and he lost it to Mahovlich. Mahovlich coming down, in on the line, over intended for Wilson. Wilson centers it right to the goal mouth. Let's see. The Leaf players caught that one in, but apparently it didn't. Now they go to the corner. The Leaf players started to put their sticks in the air. There's Mahovlich looking toward the goal judge. And that Wilson centering pass was just... It must have gone just across the goal line and just failed to tuck itself into the net. The Leaf players, in mad anticipation of that puck going in the net, particularly Mahovlich, started to get the stick up in that expression of jubilation, but the puck didn't win.
And just for the interest of fans across the country, Danny, that goal judge who is behind Plante is Bill Cleary of Boston, whose two sons, Bill and Bob, played on the U.S. Olympic team. He is one of the regular Boston officials from Boston Garden.
So the form of over 14,000 buzzing on that one, and the play is on again. The Canadians are leading the Leafs 2-1. Horton slaps it in from the point. Johnson clearing it out, and Horton in possession for the Toronto Maple Leafs to Wilson. He backhands it, and he hit the linesman Armstrong. Henry Richard to Moore. Moore over the line. A high drive, and coolly Bauer let it come off his gloved hand. Leafs starting out. Wilson tipped it to Kelly. Kelly jammed out of the play. Keeps going. Cleared it in. And Canadians with Talbot ahead to Henry Richard. Offside. And Henry Richard is arguing with linesman Doolittle. The rocket is going after the linesman, too. Talbot is the other Canadian player there. but from the upper tier, and Blake is trying to reach the linesman over on the far side at the penalty bench. There's Blake moving behind the Canadiens bench. And we have 5 minutes and 5 seconds. Stanley talking to Eddie Powers. And there's a rubber. First piece of footwear. Oh, I guess the second. I think I saw another rubber earlier in the evening, so that could be the mate of the first one. Kelly facing off against Henry Richard. Moore cleared it to center. Horton over to Stanley. Stanley fires it in. And Mahovlich racing in against Johnson around the Montreal net and the boards to Moore. Kelly digging away at it. Now Kelly on the boards. Rocket Richard takes over. He's around Jacques Plante. Played it on the boards to Pocket Richard. Kelly knocked it down. Out in front it comes. Moore almost lost it. It's back to Horton. And Horton failed to hold it at the line. Horton, number 7. Ahead to Wilson. Wilson firing it in. And now less than 5 minutes remaining in the third period. 2-1 for Canadiens. Moore coming in on the right side. A pass over to Henry Richard going right in on goal. And he couldn't control it. And Bauer finally got a hold of it. Now it's Stanley back for Toronto. On the left wing, a pass knocked off Stanley's stick by Rocket Richard, and it ends up in among the spectators. Now we have exactly 4 minutes and 9 seconds left. 1 goal separating the two teams, with the Canadiens leading by that 1-goal margin.
And a couple of very near misses at either end of the ice, with the Leafs rolling one right across the red line from post to post, and then Moore putting Henry Richard in beautifully, and the pocket just fanning the shot enough that Bauer was able to cover it without making too much of a play on it.
Brewer shooting it in. Plante watching it behind the net, and Harvey has it for Montreal. Dumps the pass out to Goyette, down with Provo and Marshall. Over the line, a pass all on the offside. Provo leading Goyette on the right wing. So the teams will have a couple of days rest. There's the clock, less than 4 minutes. 3 minutes and 55 seconds now remaining. The teams will have Sunday and Monday off. They go at it again Tuesday in Toronto. Donnie Marshall slides a rink-wide pass. It's Duff. His pass hit Provo and goes over the boards. And the reason why that came back on the ice, the assistant trainer of the Canadiens was there to pick it up. 3 minutes and 45 seconds remaining. Here's Langlois winding up for the shot. Off the leg of Armstrong. It's picked up by Duff. Duff to Armstrong. Stopped by Marshall. Marshall gives it to Provo, and he couldn't hold on to it. Harvey for Montreal at center to Phil Goyette coming down, and he just lobbed it in, an easy one to the side of the net. Bobby Bond. A long pass up on the left side. Regan going after it. He's called on the offside. They'll bring it back to the right of Bauer. Almost in the circle. It's in the circle, but not right in the middle. 2 minutes and 21 seconds left. And they're making complete changes. The drama will build up now until the end, or until such time as Toronto, if and when they get the tying goal. They'll have to throw caution to the wind now. There's a shot by Talbot. Out to Jeffrey on the rebound. And it hit a player in front. Here's Talbot winding up for the shot, and Bauer grabbed it. And the Leafs have Pulford, Stewart, Olmsted, Horton, and Stanley. Canadiens, Beliveau, Geoffrion, Bonin, Talbot, and Johnson. They're all in over the Toronto line for the faceoff. It goes behind the net to Pulford. Pulford is being watched by Beliveau and Bonin. Now it goes to Stanley. Exactly 2 minutes remaining, and the Leafs shoot it into the Canadian zone. Into the corner. Stewart fired it around the net. Geoffrion. Back it goes to Stanley. Stanley holds it in. On the right side, Geoffrion starting down. His pass, Pulford cleared it. Stewart rolled it ahead to Olmsted. Here's Olmsted going in, and the shot hit Johnson's stick. And we'll keep an eye on Bauer. It's less than we were looking on a girder, I think. We'll bend over. 2 minutes and 20 seconds now. See the top of the clock up on our monitor here? The top of it is blocked out, but I lean down. It's 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Puck goes down the ice. Bauer clearing it to Horton. Horton up on the right side. Beliveau scooping it in. And back they go. Stanley and Horton. Stanley cleared it. Geoffrion gets it. Stanley again for the Leafs, coming out with Olmsted, number 16. He has it over the line. Olmsted still with it, a backhand drive. And Beliveau for Montreal with Bonin. And Geoffrion, a right wing pass to Geoffrion into the Leaf zone. Horton takes Geoffrion in on the boards. Olmsted jammed by Beliveau. Now Beliveau gets the puck on the boards. He's bodied rather lightly by Pulford. And they'll face off to the left of Bauer, and they're changing quickly. Now that clock is down below the top of our monitor, and we can see that there are exactly 1 minute and 58 seconds. Punch Imlach, when he was looking off to his right and looking up, he was looking at the clock. Marshall clearing it in. Now it's Regan. Regan starting up on the left side, gathering speed, going to center, a pass, and it hit Langlois' skate. Regan has it again. He's turning. Provo left it for Henry Richard in over the Toronto line. A shot kicked out by Bauer. Into the corner goes Brewer. Brewer for the Toronto Maple Leafs, starting out slowly. Gathering speed on the right wing at center. He clears it in. And the Canadiens marshal over on the other side of Provo. Down to the Leaf line. Here's Provo digging in there. It's centered in front, and Wilson cleared it out over the line. Doug Harvey having difficulty. Regan rolled it ahead. Now here's Donnie Marshall in over the Leaf line, and it's called offside, and there is now less than a minute, 59 seconds officially remaining in the third period and regulation time. So Bauer skates toward the blue line. He's getting a message from Duff. You notice on that last Toronto shift they had Regan at center and Kelly was back on defense, and the redhead has not played too much defense for the Leafs this year. And there is Punch Imlach with his strategy, moving them around, indicating to Bauer when he wants them out. Now Bauer goes back into the net as Olmsted in the corner in his own zone. 2-1 the score with Montreal leading Toronto, and now we have exactly 46 seconds remaining. It's Stewart losing it to Phil Goyette. Goyette is going right in on goal. He shoots, and he missed the net as Bauer may have got a piece of it. They jam in on the boards, looking for a possession, and it's held there. And Phil Goyette had a great opportunity as he got that puck away from Stewart, going right in on Bauer to put it on ice for the Canadiens. But it's still very much alive with all 36, 37 seconds remaining. Bauer saying something to Eddie Power, and Jacques Plante is holding up proceedings as he comes out near the center ice area to take some of the tape off his stick. And the Leafs goalie, Johnny Bauer, brought it to the attention of Eddie Power and asked Power to go up there and to examine the stick of Plante. He ripped off the loose tape, and he tells Plante to get back in the net. Now Armstrong, the linesman, gets what's left of the loose tape. Face off to the right of Bauer. 36 seconds remaining in the third period in regulation time. Goyette facing off against Kelly. From the face-off, it goes wide. Goyette in the corner, turns around. Pulford is after him. Now Olmsted. Olmsted at the side of the net, coming out on the left wing. He dumped it out into the center ice area. Harvey shoots it back into the Toronto zone, and Bauer, who is trying to get out of the net, has to go back. 17 seconds remaining. Kelly up on the left wing to Duff. Duff ahead to Olmsted. They shoot it in, and Bauer is out of the net. The Leafs have 6 attackers. Plante is bumped at the side of the net. The puck is picked up by Donnie Marshall. He's going down. to Provo. Going right in the goal. He shoots. He scores! And so they're arguing the point at center about the goal. It's on the board. Provo for Marshall, 3-1. And it looked as if the clock had come to the end of its part of the game. Now Eddie Powers saying something to Rocket Richard. Doug Harvey is talking to Eddie Powers, and nobody is leaving the rink. They want to find out for sure whether... No goal! No goal. It's wiped out. Referee Eddie Powers has ruled that the playing time of 20 minutes in the third period had expired. Pretty fine hockey game, Frank.
Well, Danny, from the Toronto point of view, I think the Leafs just about now must be wondering how well you have to play in order to win a hockey game. They certainly played an extremely fine hockey game here tonight. I thought the Canadiens, with Blount playing particularly a fine game, were just a little bit too strong for them in the pinches. But the Leafs played very, very fine hockey, and I think this series is going to go far beyond the 4 games.
4 games that a lot of people were predicting. Well, we have the signal, Frank, that it's time to cut, so we want to say so long from the broadcast booth. And in just a moment, we'll have the 3-star selection. But once again, the final score, Montreal Canadiens 2 and the Toronto Maple Leafs 1.
Well, as Bobby Haggard, you mentioned, the Montreal Canadiens can play good defense when they have to. They win by a score of 2-1, and the Leafs are now down 2-0 in this best-of-7 Stanley Cup final 1960, and the Canadiens would go on to win the Stanley Cup, their 5th straight. This is Rocket Richard's last go-round. He retires after this last Stanley Cup, an amazing athlete.
Well, if you ever watch, I'm sure you have, a lot of the old film clips of him, there's not probably another player during that era that has got the intensity and the fierceness in his eyes. I mean, his eyes were just about popping out of his head all the time. And he loved to play the game of hockey. And above all, he loved to score goals and he loved to win. And he is, without a doubt, I mean, I know there's Howie Morenz and a few other great stars, but the Rocket is the Montreal Canadiens.
And he had an outstanding series and an outstanding career, and you've done an outstanding job for us today. We'd really appreciate you dropping in to visit with us to get a little different perspective of what's gone on from behind the bench, but not with the coach's fedora on. Bobby, we want to thank you.
Thank you so much, and remember one thing, the Montreal Forum always had the greatest hot dogs.
Yes, they did. You're right about that. And I'm sure the training staff found out all about that. Anyway, the Leafs lose by a score of 2-1 to the Montreal Canadiens. We've taken Bobby Haggard back to April 9th, 1960. And this has been Molson Canadian Sunday Night Classics on Leafs TV.
This portion of Leafs TV is brought to you by Molson Canadian. I am Canadian. Molson Canadian Sunday Night Classics on Leafs TV. It's a Canadian game. Brought to you by Molson Canadian.